after my boyfriend dumped me, he planned to go to Tsinghua University with the beautiful top student, ready to start their new life together. But when the college entrance exams ended, I was the only one from our school who got into Tsinghua, and I gave a speech as the student representative. They could only watch from the audience. 1. My boyfriend and I got caught dating too young. The homeroom teacher called in our parents, and my boyfriend's mother immediately started laying into me. Now, this gaunt, middle-aged woman was standing right in front of me, spitting as she ranted, "You're so young, yet you already know how to chase after boys. Our Shuhua is destined for Tsinghua or Peking University. Who the hell do you think you are? Take a good look at yourself in the mirror. You'll probably just end up in a vocational college and then on a factory assembly line. If you hold him back, can you even take that responsibility?" I wiped the spit she had sprayed on my face and turned to look at my boyfriend, Jiang Shuhua. He lowered his head, avoiding my gaze, and didn't say a word. My mother snapped angrily from the side. "What are you saying? Think you're so great just because of good grades? Probably just a bookworm." Jiang Shuhua's mother got even more worked up hearing that. "Still better than your daughter's total of 100 points across 6 subjects. What a disgrace. If you can't discipline her, I'll do it for you." She lunged forward to slap me, but my mother swiftly intercepted her hand. The two women grappled with each other, plunging the scene into immediate chaos. Just then, the door suddenly swung open. Class monitor Chiu Ting walked in, arms laden with a stack of test papers, her eyes darting repeatedly in our direction. Chiu Ting had previously given a presentation at the parent-teacher conference as the top student in her grade, so Jiang Shuhua's mother recognized her the moment Chiu Ting walked in. The woman's arrogance flared up even more. She sneered through gritted teeth. "Even if my son were looking for someone, he wouldn't settle for the dead weight from your family. If he's looking, he'll aim for the top student in the grade." I saw Chiu Ting's cheeks flush slightly as she stole a glance at Jiang Shuhua. Jiang Shuhua looked up and met her gaze, only to quickly avert his eyes. The whole farce finally concluded with the homeroom teacher laying blame on both sides. Even though Jiang Shuhua had good grades, my family was well off and never skimped on giving gifts to the homeroom teacher. The homeroom teacher didn't have the heart to lecture me too harshly, so she just offered a gentle reminder. "You're students, after all, your studies should come first. Chiaru, you two should focus on your schoolwork from now on." I could tell that deep down, the homeroom teacher was really on Jiang Shuhua's side, after all. When the class's bottom-ranked student dates the second highest achiever in the grade, anyone would think I was holding Jiang Shuhua back. I pressed my lips together. "Yes, teacher, our homeroom teacher gave us half a day off, telling us to go home and calm down." My mother led me out of the school gate, and for once, she didn't scold me. Looking at the bloody scratches on her face left by Jiang Shuhua's mother, my heart ached with a bitter, sour pain. I've shamed her, because my grades were poor. She spent a fortune to get me into a top high school, single-mindedly giving gifts and treating teachers to meals, just begging them to look out for me. I was dead last in class, so she didn't even have the confidence to argue with others. A wealthy lady, she was bowing and scraping, humbly apologizing to the teachers, because their son was second in the grade, while I was at the very bottom. Anyone in that situation would have thought it was all my fault. People said she didn't know how to raise a child. For someone as proud as her, she couldn't even argue back. "Mom," I shuffled forward, my mouth opening and closing wordlessly. My mother turned to look at me, her face etched with weariness. After a long moment, her eyes welled up. "Can't you just make me proud for once?" In that moment, I finally understood what heartbreak truly felt like. My mother is such a strong person. In all my years, I had never once seen her cry, yet now, she was crying because someone had insulted her daughter, and she had no way to defend me because I hadn't given her the grounds to. It felt like a hand had clenched around my heart, twisting and churning with pain. In that moment, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I told myself, I'm going to make my mom proud. I'm damn well getting into Tsinghua University, too. That very evening, Jiang Shuhua broke up with me. He messaged me on WeChat, saying that after thinking it over these past few days, students really should focus on their studies, and he hoped we could talk about other things after the college entrance exams. I didn't really hold it against him, though, after all, his grades are so good, and getting into Tsinghua University has always been his goal. I can understand not wanting anything to interfere with his studies, but to my surprise, just a few days later, Jiang Shuhua and Qiu Ting made their relationship official on social media. I saw them post the same photo simultaneously, a picture of their hands intertwined in the library. The caption read, "Being with the right person is what helps you become a better version of yourself." Below the post was a flood of congratulatory comments. The top 2 students in the grade, "I'm so jealous. Imagine how smart their kids would be, IQ 180. The photo was beautifully taken. A beam of sunlight streamed through the window, falling on a pair of hands with fingers tightly interlaced. Her hands were pale and elegant, just the kind Jiang Shuhua liked. He told me many times that my manicure was too flashy and didn't look good. Yeah, someone like Qiu Ting was always his type. She was pretty, with long, straight black hair, so incredibly pure-looking, and her grades were always top of the class. She was practically the female lead from a teen movie. I was just the last resort after he couldn't shake me off. My hand holding the phone trembled slightly as the belated realization of Jiang Shuhua's meaning finally hit me. His claim of needing to focus on his studies was just an excuse to break up with me, yet he couldn't even be bothered to see that flimsy excuse through. Not even a few days after the breakup, he was already eagerly posting that kind of thing on social media, without a single thought for my feelings. Yes, the romance between top students is truly something beautiful. They'll go to Tsinghua University together and have a bright future. And me, I'm just a defective piece that everyone finds jarringly out of place in this love story. I picked up my phone to call Jiang Shuhua. It took him a long time to answer the phone. I wanted to give him a piece of my mind. But as soon as I opened my mouth, my throat tightened. "Jiang Shuhua, what is the meaning of this?" I choked out, "I thought you were supposed to be focusing on your studies." Jiang Shuhua was silent for a moment. Then after a pause, he said quietly, "I'm sorry, Chiaru. Feelings are something I can't control. We were never on the same path to begin with. She's different from you. Being with Tingting won't affect my studies." "What about me?" I cried out, heartbroken. "What am I supposed to do? Haven't I been good enough to you?" "I'm sorry." Jiang Shuhua's voice was slow and resolute. "You might be pitiful, but there's nothing I can do." A faint, muffled woman's voice came through the receiver. It was Qiu Ting. "Shuhua, I found a book." Jiang Shuhua's voice sounded flustered. "I can't talk. Please don't contact me again." With that, he hung up the phone. My vision began to blur as tears, stinging my eyes, flowed uncontrollably. In that moment, I felt what was being trampled wasn't just my feelings, but also my dignity. I was a worthless loser, cast aside without a second thought. And all of this is because my grades are poor. Being with me would hurt your studies, but being with Qiu Ting wouldn't. They're the perfect golden couple, and me, I'm just a worthless nobody. I cried all night, and when I woke up the next morning, my eyes were so swollen I could barely open them. My temples are throbbing with pain. I don't think I've ever felt this awful in my life. Yet, a single spark fell into my heart, igniting a raging fire. I'm going to study hard. I'll make everyone who looked down on me regret it. I'm going to prove myself. 3. Studying hard sounds easy in theory, but putting it into practice is incredibly difficult. I spent my entire first year of high school messing around, and I haven't studied at all since starting my second year. All my energy goes into my appearance, following celebrities, and going out clubbing. I genuinely find studying pointless. My family is well off, even if I fail the college entrance exam. My parents will find a way to send me abroad. Why should I kill myself studying? In my year and a half of high school, I never once did homework. On exams, I either handed in blank papers or scribbled a few random answers, consistently ranking in the bottom 3 of my grade. I thought about it for a long time and decided to start by catching up on the material from the first year of high school. But as soon as I opened the book, even though I recognized every single character, when put together they might as well have been written in ancient hieroglyphics, I forced myself to read for 10 minutes before I just couldn't focus anymore. My head was swimming, and I couldn't stop yawning. It's so hard. This is really, really difficult. Watching Jiang Shuhua solve problems. He just starts writing without even thinking. It doesn't look that hard. I started to lose my nerve. My family's rich anyway. So what if they get into Tsinghua? They might end up working for me someday. Just as I was about to put the book down, my mom suddenly knocked and came in. She was holding a plate of fruit, her face a picture of stunned surprise. "Oh, are you? You're studying." My mom's expression quickly turned to one of alarm. She gave a strained, almost smile, set the fruit on my desk, and nervously wiped her hands. "Oh dear, am I disturbing you? You should get back to your studies." With that, she hurried out the door, closing it gently behind her without making a sound. I stared blankly at the fruit on the table. They were grapes, still on the stem, washed meticulously with flour until they were spotless, not a single bad one in the bunch. My mother had done this every single day before. She was worried the nanny wouldn't wash the fruit properly, and that I wouldn't like the meals she cooked. So, she went out of her way to take care of me herself. My mother's face kept appearing before my eyes. One moment, it was the pained expression as she said, "Make your mother proud." The next moment, it was the look of anxious guilt for disturbing my studies. I tightened my grip on the pen in my hand and opened the book I was about to close. Damn it, I'll just keep watching for a bit longer. Studying is truly agonizing, but once you get past that brutal initial phase, it doesn't seem to tear at your heart and liver quite as much. I even started to find a glimmer of interest while reading the history book. I visited the Terracotta Army with my mom before, but I never really looked into what the first emperor did after unifying the 6 states. I never imagined he had such vision and boldness. It's truly awe-inspiring. I never took any notes. My textbooks were just filled with doodles from class. I drew a mustache on the portrait of Qin Shi Huang and gave him a new hairstyle. I was just killing time at first, but now, having looked at it more carefully, I feel a bit unsettled. I was flipping through the history book page by page, and I can't even remember when I fell asleep. When the alarm went off the next morning, I was surprised to find I'd fallen asleep at my desk. The imprint of the book's pages was still on my face. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, feeling a sense of disbelief. I can't believe there came a day when Chiaru actually fell asleep while reading. When my mom called me for dinner, she was unusually nice to me, constantly putting food in my bowl. "Eat up, studying takes a lot out of you. My girl is just brilliant. With a little studying, she'll surpass that little brat. What's he so proud of anyway? We'll get into Tsinghua University someday. Just you wait." I stared at the chicken drumstick in my bowl, a whirlwind of emotions churning inside me. My mom has always had that much faith in me. Even if her daughter were a piece of crap, she'd still think it was the best piece of crap in the world. She's over the moon whenever I put in just a little bit of effort to study. It's so incredibly satisfying. I looked into my mom's sparkling eyes. "Tonight, I think I'll study a little longer, for I ran into Chiu Ting on my way into school this morning. My girlfriends gathered around and asked me where we were going out that night. Hey Chiaru, a new bar just opened on Nanjing Road. I heard there are a lot of cute guys. Wanna check it out tonight?" Chiu Ting walked past, shooting us a sidelong glance. She didn't say a word, her expression didn't even change, yet I could see profound disdain in that look. It was a look of contempt, as if she had seen something filthy. In her eyes, we seemed like a pile of trash, scum from a class entirely beneath her. That does seem to be the case. Wherever she goes, she receives nothing but praise from classmates and teachers. But for someone like me, people would just say, "That slacker. Chiaru, say something. Dinner's on me tonight. Hey, you didn't put on any makeup today. You should go touch it up later." I snapped back to reality and looked at my friends, all wearing skinny jeans and heavy makeup. It suddenly hit me I'd been so preoccupied with studying this morning that I'd completely forgotten to do my makeup. But for some reason, looking at their flawlessly made-up faces suddenly made me feel a bit uneasy. "Nah, I can't make it. I've got something on tonight." I was too embarrassed to say I was going home to study. They'd have teased me to death. Phut, what could be so important? Sounds boring. Seeing they couldn't persuade me, they scoffed and turned to leave. I watched Chiu Ting's retreating figure. She waved to Jiang Shuhua in the distance, then quickened her pace to catch up and looped her arm through his. Jiang Shuhua turned his head with a smile and gently patted her head. They looked like the perfect couple, a match made in heaven. I stood there, rooted to the spot, lost in my thoughts. They were dating, but the homeroom teacher never called their parents in. I heard Chiu Ting made a solemn promise to the homeroom teacher that her grades wouldn't slip, so even though dating at that age is technically forbidden, they could get away with it so brazenly, right? With the top 2 students in the grade together, how could it possibly hurt their studies? They were a match made in heaven, and it seemed everyone took it for granted. Not far away, Qiuting said something to Jiang Shuhua. He glanced at me almost imperceptibly, and the smile vanished from his face in an instant. In his eyes was a look of contempt, identical to Qiuting's. I desperately wanted to rush over and slap him, but I knew the consequences of doing so. I just stood there, watching their figures grow smaller and smaller in the distance until they finally vanished from sight. 5. The first class today is history. To be honest, I was equally terrible at both the arts and sciences. I only picked history, politics, and biology because Jiang Shuhua chose them, and I just blindly followed his lead. That way, we can all sit together when we go to class. It's only now that I understand why Jiang Shuhua chose these 3 courses. I watched Qiuting sitting at the very front. The teacher was leaning over and speaking to her, so it was because Qiuting had chosen these 3 that he followed suit and picked the same ones. He probably had a thing for Qiuting all along. I didn't say a word, just opened the textbook I was reading yesterday. What a coincidence. We were currently reviewing first-year high school history, and the section being covered was exactly the one I had read last night. In the past, I never paid attention in class. I'd secretly play on my phone, read novels, pass notes, chat, just not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But today, watching Jiang Shuhua and Qiuting bent over their books, I found I couldn't bring myself to pull my phone out of my pocket. I opened my textbook and forced myself to focus. Yesterday, when I looked through it myself, I only gave it a cursory glance. Strangely enough, and completely unlike before, this time I could actually follow what the teacher was saying. Before, his words were like a dull chant. They went in one ear and out the other, leaving me drowsy. Now, I can actually understand what he's saying, and my mind is actively processing the teacher's lecture. To my surprise, I even found myself able to recite all these points from memory right after he finished explaining them. I grew increasingly excited, my eyes glued to the page of the textbook, even forgetting all about Jiang Shuhua and Qiuting. Am I some kind of genius? Starting from the beginning of this column. Recite the measures Emperor Qin Shi Huang took to consolidate unification. Just as I was burying my head and silently reciting, the history teacher suddenly pointed at Qiuting. You start. Qiuting stood up with great composure and fluently recited the entire passage. Politically, the central government implemented the 3 lords and 9 ministers system. Locally, it abolished the feudal system in favor of the commandery and county system, strengthening control over the regions and upholding the authority of the central government. Economically, it standardized weights and measures, as well as currency. Her voice was clear and pleasant, and she recited the entire passage without a single stumble, delivering it with remarkable fluency. The teacher adjusted his glasses and smiled with satisfaction. Very good. Next. The next few students weren't nearly as smooth, forgetting 2 lines out of every 3. They clearly displeased the teacher. That was sloppy. Go home and practice it 10 more times. If you haven't got it by tomorrow, you'll be standing for the whole lesson. Next, I slowly rose to my feet. The entire class fell silent in an instant. Jiang Shuhua turned to look at me, his expression darkening slightly. Qiuting also shot a glance my way, a flicker of mockery in her eyes. I understand why they're all reacting that way, as the class's most consistent underachiever. I've always been open and unapologetic about not studying. Usually, I just pretend not to hear in these situations, and the teacher was used to it. Moving on to the next student. Chow are you? You, the teacher said, frowning slightly. I took a deep breath, pretending not to notice the curious or amused glances around me, and proceeded to recite the points I had just memorized in order. Though I stumbled briefly due to nerves, the delivery was remarkably smooth. The history teacher looked astonished, his furrowed brow gradually relaxing. A moment later, a faint smile touched the corners of his mouth. Excellent, truly excellent. I can see you've put in the work to memorize this. Keep it up just like this from now on. Well done, well done. You may sit down. A soft murmur of surprise rippled through the surrounding classmates. Qiuting's mocking smile froze on her face. She shot me a sidelong glance before turning her head away. I felt my face grow warm and sat back down, somewhat flustered. I think my ears must be bright red. Yet, a strange kind of happiness bloomed inside me. This was the first time a teacher had ever praised me, the very first time in my life. It was a truly peculiar feeling. completely different from spotting a handsome guy at a bar, getting a huge allowance from my parents, or buying an expensive handbag. It was a deep, heartfelt joy. It felt like a flower blooming in my heart. I even felt a bit shy from the teacher's praise. I fell in love with history class almost instantly. I don't want to be at the bottom of the class anymore. At the very least, I want to get a better grade in history. 6. When the bell rang, it suddenly hit me that the class was already over. 45 minutes usually feels like pure torture to me. I have to count every single second. How did today fly by so fast? I haven't had my fill of studying yet. I glanced at the textbook, its pages already densely packed with notes. It looked completely out of place next to all the other textbooks. A deep sense of satisfaction washed over me, and I wished I could fill every single textbook the same way. Qiu Ting and Jiang Shuhua walked past me, but I paid them no mind, preoccupied with the history homework I had to do that night. That evening, for the first time ever, I went straight to my room and started on my homework. My mother was taken aback. She wanted to talk to me but didn't dare. I could hear her muffled laughter from outside the room. Laro Qiao, look, Ruru is actually studying. Her voice was filled with incredulous delight. My father said with a warm smile, "You've grown up and become so sensible." I couldn't help but let a small smile touch the corners of my mouth as I buried my head back in my test papers. It wasn't long before my grasp of history grew stronger and stronger. My history teacher was a bit like a stern old cadre, always wearing a serious expression that made him seem quite strict. However, he was never stingy with his praise for me. He would commend me for reciting answers fluently, doing my homework well, or paying close attention in class. The more he praised me, the more motivated I became in my studies, to the point where I'd even review history during other classes. When I get home in the evening, I'll go over the history textbook I'm studying from cover to cover. Even though I only study for an hour, it's a world of difference compared to before. Soon enough, the first monthly exam of the new semester arrived. After getting the history test paper, I glanced over the questions with considerable confidence. I've memorized most of these questions over the past few days. Honestly, history isn't that difficult, and it doesn't require much prior knowledge. With a good memory, you can just brute force your way through by rote learning. My pen flew across the page, and I finished all the questions in no time. But other subjects aren't that easy. I've been studying history these past few days and haven't really looked at my other subjects, just listened in class. These questions look a bit more familiar than before, but I'm still not sure what the answers are, with no other choice. I gritted my teeth and muddled through with a mix of calculation and guesswork, but at least I didn't hand in a blank paper. Once all the exams were over, a wave of anxiety started to set in. For the first time, I had genuinely and diligently completed the entire exam. How would I do? Would I improve? Or would I still be stuck at the bottom of the class? Will my history teacher be disappointed in my grade? Qiu Ting and Jiang Shuhua are definitely going to make fun of me again, aren't they? All these thoughts were jumbled together, cramming my head until it felt ready to burst. I couldn't focus on studying at all. I was just waiting for my grades like a prisoner awaiting a verdict. Soon enough, the monthly exam results were posted. Watching Qiu Ting hand out the test papers, I couldn't help but take a deep breath. When it was my turn, Qiu Ting looked at the test paper, her brow furrowed tightly. She scanned it up and down for a good 10 seconds, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. A moment later, she walked past me and slapped a paper down on my desk. For the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to be nervous. I picked up the paper with my eyes closed, and it took me a long while to dare open them. A huge, crimson number burned into my vision. History, 92. I was utterly stunned, my hands trembling uncontrollably. It's hard to understand this feeling if you've never been a bottom student. My scores had always been single digit. Getting into double digits was a stroke of luck. I actually got a 92, a score in the 90s. Is this really my score? Chiaru. I couldn't help but grin like an idiot, turning the test paper over and over in my hands. I lost those points on questions I'd never seen before. My foundation is just too weak. I haven't even finished learning the previous material. Just as I was over the moon, the history teacher walked in. The whole class fell silent instantly. He walked up to the podium, cleared his throat softly, and without any preamble, pulled out the test papers. The questions on this test were quite challenging, but you all did surprisingly well. I have to admit, I didn't expect that. For this exam, he said, picking up a list, 3 students scored above 90, Qiuting got 99, and Jiang Shuhua got 98. Then the history teacher smiled and added, and Qiao are you? My heart instantly began to pound. Qiao are you has been studying extremely hard lately, and she's very bright too. To make such rapid progress is quite impressive. Qiao are you, 92 points. Don't get complacent. Keep working hard and aim for a perfect score next time. The whole class erupted in an uproar. All the students looked over at me in astonishment, whispering amongst themselves. I saw a complex look in Jiang Shuhua's eyes, while Qiuting's face turned ashen. In an instant, a grin spread across my face, completely beyond my control. The joy was indescribable, a profound sense of accomplishment. It felt as if my entire sense of self-worth was elevated in that moment. Just like that, I went from being the class nobody to the top of the class. Even if it was just this one subject, it proved that my hard work was finally paying off. No wonder everyone says to study hard. So this is what it feels like to be a top student, a heady mix of pride, smugness, and satisfaction. It's enough to make you feel like you're floating on air. I have no memory of how I got through the rest of that class. When the bell rang, a few girls gathered around Qiuting's desk to chat. Top students usually carry a kind of natural authority, and they always seem to have a few hangers-on around them. They seemed to be deliberately trying to get under my skin, raising their voices as they spoke. Some people just can't study, and they're not even smart about cheating, scoring in the 90s. Who's going to believe that? Exactly. What's the point? They're only fooling themselves. Qiuting. You're amazing as always. Another 99. You're incredible. How do you do it? Qiuting's expression softened a little, and she smiled, saying, only a 99. Losing a point to carelessness is just unacceptable. You all know me, I never study at home. Other people's business is none of our concern. A little cleverness might work for a while, but it won't last a lifetime. Honestly, I find it rather pathetic, failing at both relationships and academics. Heh, she smiled with pursed lips. And the people around her joined in the mockery. I clenched the test paper in my hand, feeling all my earlier good mood vanish in an instant. A surge of rage shot through me, and I felt a mental wire in my head snap with a ping. I shot to my feet and strode over to Qiuting. My expression must have been terrible, because Qiuting was startled, then frowned and said, Qiao are you? What are you doing? Are you going to hit me? You slackers are all terrible at studying. But you're first-rate when it comes to picking a fight, I said, suppressing the rage in my heart. Qiuting, what did you just say? I dare you to repeat that. I don't repeat myself for free, she said, looking at me with contempt. If the shoe fits, wear it, Qiao. Honestly, I almost feel sorry for you sometimes. Is this really the best you can do to get attention, resorting to such cheap tricks? Her words felt like a steel blade plunging straight into my heart. I was so furious my vision swam. Just as I was about to retort, someone shoved my shoulder hard. I stumbled backward, losing my balance, and slammed into the corner of a desk behind me. A sharp, stabbing pain shot through my side. I looked up. It was Jiang Shuhua. He had his arm around Qiuting, looking at me with clear disapproval on his face. Qiao are you? What are you doing? Qiuting isn't like you. Don't bring your troublemaker ways into this. I was absolutely furious and shouted. She accused me of cheating. Didn't you hear her? Jiang Shuhua's expression was complicated. Qiao, your little tricks are useless. Everyone knows what's really going on. I suggest you get your head out of the clouds and stop trying to be clever. In that instant, a surge of pure rage threatened to consume me whole. My mind went blank, and I could have killed that wretched pair right then and there. So what if you get good grades? Does that give you the right to look down on people and pin the blame on them? The words were out of my mouth before I even realized it. What's so great about you? I'm definitely going to beat you on the final exams. The whole class fell silent for a moment, then burst into uproarious laughter. The few people gathered around Qiuting were laughing so hard they could barely stay upright. Qiao are you? Get real. Qiuting is the top student in the grade. You think you can beat her? Talk is cheap. You're dreaming. Ha 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 ha. Even Qiuting couldn't help but laugh. Alright, Qiao are you? If you can actually beat me, I'll do whatever you say. If you can't do it, you have to stand at the school gate and shout 3 times. Qiao are you? I'm a worthless piece of trash. Do you dare? Her look of utter confidence and disdain made my blood boil. Fine, if I beat you, you have to bow and apologize to me at the school gate, and admit that I'm better than you. Have it your way. She shot me a sidelong glance. You're just asking for humiliation. How pathetic, I sneered back. Save the act. Don't come crying to me later. With that, I grabbed my bag and walked out of the classroom. 7. Talking big felt great in the moment, but the second I stepped out of school, I was filled with regret. I smacked my own head in frustration. Damn it, why couldn't I have just held my tongue? If I really had to do something, I could have just had someone find a chance to rough them up a bit. Why did I have to go and say I'd outscore them? Well, great, with finals still months away. How the hell am I supposed to beat Qiu Ting? It's a complete pipe dream. What an idiot. I cursed myself silently. When I got home, I was still agonizing over what to do. If I really had to go shout I'm a worthless piece of crap 3 times in front of the school, I'd rather just run headfirst into a wall and die. Just as I was feeling miserable, my mom suddenly came and knocked on my door. Ruru, come out here. Your brother Yin is here, I said impatiently. What Yin? Yin Xiuqing. I shot up from my seat, startling my mom. Don't be rude to your brother Yin. Go out and talk to him. Perfect. Talk about perfect timing. I rushed out and pushed the door open. Brother Yin, you're here. Yin Xiuqing was sitting on my sofa. The evening sun streamed through the window, casting a soft, golden halo around his tall, slender frame. He looked almost unreal, like something out of a dream. Hearing the voice, he turned his head, his peach blossom eyes lifted slightly, a spark of interest dancing in them as he said, Well, isn't this a surprise? The sun must be rising from the west today. How come you're not calling me bookworm this time? My face flushed red. Yin Xiuqing is the son of my mom's best friend. He's been a local legend around here since we were kids. He started skipping grades in elementary school, taught himself high school curriculum in middle school, and even though he's only a few years older than me, he's already in a combined master's and PhD program at Tsinghua University. He was already guaranteed admission, but he insisted on taking the college entrance exam anyway. In the end, he got into Tsinghua University with what can only be described as a terrifyingly high score. People like that aren't human. What's sitting on their shoulders isn't a brain, it's a supercomputer. It's honestly terrifying to hear about. Back when I was just slacking off, I absolutely despised him. The guy had it all: good looks, top grades, a great family background. He was as dazzling as the sun in the sky, which only made me look more like a pile of mud in comparison. But things are different now. I need him right now. With Yin Xiuqing here, dealing with people like Qiu Ting and Jiang Shuhua will be a piece of cake. Your brother Yin is coming home to stay for a while. You two haven't seen each other in ages, are you? Come on, come say hello to your brother Yin. I'm going to wash some fruit. I forced a sycophantic smile. Brother Yin, you're back. Yin Xiuqing recoiled as if he'd seen something vile, his body tensing with wariness. Chow, are you? What's wrong with you? My smile froze. I leaned closer and put on a sugary voice, saying, Brother Yin, I remember you scored 740 on the Gaokao, right? To be precise, it was 739, Yin Xiuqing said flatly. Chow, are you? Whatever scheme you're hatching, I suggest you drop it right now. Damn it. No wonder he still can't find a girlfriend. This Yin Xiuqing is as stubborn and unpleasant as a rock in a latrine. Suppressing my anger, I said, Brother Yin, we grew up together. How can you bear to see me fail to get into university in the future? How could you be so heartless? I froze for a moment, then simply pretended I hadn't heard him and blurted out my request. Brother Yin, could you tutor me? Tutor you? Yin Xiuqing's expression finally shifted, and he looked at me with a mixture of shock and suspicion as he said, Chow, are you? Have you been possessed by something unclean? I had finally had enough, and my face fell. Yin Xiuqing, just tell me if you'll tutor me or not. Can't I turn over a new leaf if you don't tutor me? I'm telling your mom. Yin Xiuqing's mom never had a daughter, so she adores little girls, especially me. If she found out he refused to help me study, she'd give him an earful. Sure enough, Yin Xiuqing's expression stiffened. After a long pause, he gritted his teeth and said, Chow, are you? You're really asking for trouble. What kind of crazy scheme are you cooking up now? I grabbed his arm and pleaded earnestly, Bro, I want to get into Tsinghua. Please, you've got to help me get into Tsinghua. My boyfriend dumped me for some straight A student. I made a bet with them that I'd outscore them all by the end of the semester. I thought Yin Xiucheng would laugh at me like everyone else. But to my surprise, he just looked startled for a moment before running his hand through his hair in frustration. Qiao, are you? Did you lose your mind along with your heart in that relationship? And what's in it for me? Aren't you starting a business? I exclaimed excitedly. I'll give you all my New Year's money. Yin Xiucheng sneered. If I were counting on your measly New Year's money, I might as well quit. You better study hard. Got it? He said menacingly. If you don't study hard, I'll beat you up. After a moment's thought, I understood why Yin Xiucheng didn't think I was being delusional. For a human computer like him, getting into Tsinghua University probably wasn't difficult at all. I've really hit the jackpot. I looked at him with wide, earnest eyes and said, deal. If I don't, you can hit me. 8. Yin Xiucheng was highly efficient and wanted to start tutoring me right then and there. I asked curiously, bro, don't you need to review at all? A mocking smirk curled at the corner of his mouth. If I had to study this basic 1 + 1 = 2 stuff of yours, I might as well not live. Stop dawdling and let's get started. I pursed my lips and pulled out the math homework that always gave me a headache. I have a good memory, so I pick up subjects like history and politics, which rely mostly on rote memorization, pretty quickly. But when it comes to anything requiring logical thinking, I'm completely lost. Without any fuss, Yin Xiucheng started tutoring me right from the high school freshman material. Try solving this problem first. Let me see how you do. I want to see what your foundational knowledge is like. I took one look and saw it was a geometry problem. That kind of spatial perspective diagram made my eyes cross. Forget solving it. I could barely even understand what the question was asking. All these points A, B, and C. My head was starting to throb. Glancing at Yin Xiucheng's impatient expression, I said cautiously, bro, I don't know how to do this. You don't know how, he frowned. Which part don't you understand? I said cautiously. All of it. I can't even understand the questions. Yin Xiucheng's expression gradually turned serious. He felt my forehead and pondered for a moment. After a while, he said earnestly, Qiao, are you? Maybe you have an intellectual disability. I mean, perhaps you were born with a cognitive impairment. Have you ever been tested? I slammed the book against his face in anger. I'm telling your mom. All right, he said, taking the book down and reopening it. My bad luck. Look here. This is point A. Draw a line to point C. He drew a line on the book with his pen. So, what does this become? I took a look and said uncertainly, an equilateral triangle. Exactly. So you're not a complete idiot. I thought a genius like Yin Xiucheng would explain things in a rushed, superficial way. For people like him, the answer is obvious at a glance. There's no need to go through all the twists and turns. But to my surprise, he was incredibly thorough, breaking down every single point for me. I followed his train of thought and kept building on it, and I actually started to understand bit by bit. Even when I got stuck, Yin Xiucheng would patiently unpack it step by step. So, what's the answer to this problem? He asked, putting down his pen after a long while. He leaned back in his chair, legs spread, and looked at me. I ventured, so the figure is twice the area of the shaded part. Bingo. He snapped his fingers. Your brain's not completely useless, but your fundamentals are weak. Memorize every formula in this book tonight. I'll test you tomorrow. He stood up and leaned in close, threatening, if you don't have them memorized, I'll beat you to a pulp, up close. I realized just how incredibly long his eyelashes were. When they fluttered, it was like the wings of a butterfly. He's so beautiful. How can someone be blessed with such looks and such brains? What flaw could he possibly have? He still hasn't been in a relationship. Could it be that he's gay? Just as I was wondering, Yin Xiucheng had already stood up. Starting tomorrow, have Aunt Zhong request leave for you. Don't go to evening self-study anymore. I'll tutor you myself. With that, he tossed the book aside and left. My mom knew he was tutoring me and came trotting over, wiping her hands on her apron. Cheng, you're leaving already. You must stay for dinner. Yin Xiucheng waved his hand and said, Auntie, my mom has dinner ready at home. I'll come another time. Please don't see me out. You should head back in. I'll be back tomorrow. My mother watched his departing figure with reluctance, only turning back to speak to me after he had disappeared into the elevator. Ruru, having your brother Yin tutor you is really overkill. You absolutely must study hard. Understand? I nodded. holding my book with the intention of reviewing it a little longer. That problem-solving approach just now was quite interesting. I wanted to verify it again. I arrived at school bright and early the next day. There's one point in that line of thinking I don't quite get. I wanted to ask Yin Xiuqing, but I was afraid he'd yell at me, so I thought I'd ask the teacher instead. To be honest, I was a bit nervous. A student like me never sets foot in the teacher's office unless I'm being called in with my parents. Is the teacher going to think I'm causing trouble? I hesitated as I stepped into the office. The math teacher was drinking tea. The math teacher was a middle-aged man. His favorite pastimes were smoking and drinking tea, and he had a pretty sharp tongue when scolding students. I started to regret coming. Just as I was about to leave, he noticed me. "Chow, are you? Who are you looking for?" I bit my lip and said quietly, "Teacher, I have a question." I stood there awkwardly. To be honest, a place like the teacher's office naturally felt intimidating to a struggling student like me. I was nervous the moment I stepped inside. The math teacher set down his thermos and naturally extended a hand toward me. "So, where's the problem?" I handed the book over with both hands and said, "It's question 7. I don't quite follow the solution. Why do we need to connect points B and E?" The teacher examined it carefully. "Look, this line is parallel to AC. You can use it to construct an isosceles triangle. With geometry problems, you should always consider these kinds of special auxiliary lines first." The math teacher took out a ruler, drew the line to show me, and explained it step by step. "Does that make sense now?" It suddenly clicked. "Got it. I understand now." The teacher smiled and said, "I heard you've been hitting the books lately. Seems like that puppy love wasn't such a bad thing after all. You're like a strong ox that won't pull the plow. You've got a good head on your shoulders. You just didn't care for studying before. Go on, come back if you have any questions." Feeling a bit embarrassed, I thanked him and hurried out. Nothing seems as terrifying as I had imagined. I thought to myself, perhaps I had made studying out to be more difficult than it really is. In fact, with enough effort, none of these obstacles are insurmountable. 9. From that day on, I stopped attending evening self-study sessions. Yin Xiuqing would tutor me at home instead. He wasn't kidding about disciplining me. He'd frequently whack my head with a book. Sometimes he'd hit me so hard my eyes would well up with tears. I'd clutch my head and protest. "Don't hit my head, it'll make me stupid." He leaned lazily against my headboard and said, "Is there even room for you to sink any lower? Hurry up, if you can't memorize this essay, you're not eating today." Staring at the English words that looked like tiny bugs, I felt my brain cells were on the verge of extinction. "Can't I just skip the memorizing? This is way too hard," Yin Xiuqing said while playing his game. "Sure, if you can write it out. You don't have to memorize it. Go ahead and write it then." I was fuming, but had no choice but to start grinding through them one by one. Yin Xiuqing said my foundation was too weak, making me memorize vocabulary every single day, and get this, he actually had me studying for the postgraduate entrance exam word list, that massive, thick red book. I said, "Is all this really necessary just for the college entrance exam?" He sneered, "If you want to get into Tsinghua, you'd better take it seriously. Did you think just any old riffraff could coast their way in, if you can't even memorize this little bit? I suggest you go apologize and admit you're good for nothing." Spurred on by his words, I started studying vocabulary every day, book in hand. My bathroom, the dining room, my bedside, everywhere in my house was covered in vocabulary flashcards. I'd start memorizing the moment I opened my eyes and wouldn't stop until I fell asleep. Under this intense study regimen, even though I still only half understood the English exam papers, they no longer looked like complete gibberish to me. You have to understand, the most important thing in learning English is a feel for the language. All those so-called techniques are for average students. If you want to get into Tsinghua, you have to make English your second language. Yin Xiuqing forced me to memorize English news articles and essays every single day. I would look at the complex passages in front of me with a sense of grievance, reciting them line by line. I don't know how long it took, but I finally managed to memorize it. Albeit barely. Yin Xiuqing examined it, his expression pained. "Still not good enough. Your foundation is too weak, but at least it's better than before. You must memorize this book within 3 months. Understand?" I nodded, only then belatedly feeling a twisting, squeezing sensation in my stomach. I'd completely forgotten I hadn't eaten dinner yet. Yin Xiu Cheng heard my stomach growl too and let out a soft chuckle. Alright, let's go eat. The midterm exams arrived swiftly amidst this cycle of daily studying. Sitting at the desk, I wiped the sweat from my palms with a tissue. The moment to test the fruits of all my days of study had arrived. For 2 months, I studied day and night, almost turning into a study-obsessed robot. I was nearly finished memorizing the Red Book, and I'd lost count of how many English essays I'd committed to memory. I've worked through a stack of math workbooks as thick as my palm, and filled 2 whole notebooks with notes for politics and history. What kind of grade will I get? Is there any chance I could get close to Qiu Ting's level? I took a deep breath and started on the problems. I'm familiar with some of these questions, but others are completely new to me. Yin Xiucheng refused to give me any hints or predicted questions, saying he didn't want me to take shortcuts. Now, looking at the actual exam, some problems seem similar to what I've practiced, while others leave me utterly bewildered. Glancing over at Qiu Ting, who's in the same exam hall, I see her working with calm composure, her pen flying across the page. After only a moment's thought, she jots down an answer. A wave of anxiety hits me. I force myself to look away from her, take a deep breath to focus, and start with the questions I know I can solve. In the past, during regular exams, I would just doodle and then hand in a blank paper when time was up. Back then, time felt agonizingly long, but now it just never seems to be enough. I didn't even have time to think through many of the questions properly, and when I handed in my paper, I realized I hadn't even finished a major section. I looked over at Qiu Ting. She had finished long ago, checked her work, and was now resting with her eyes closed. I gritted my teeth and told myself not to panic. I had to nail the next exam. After the exam, Qiu Ting walked over. She stood before me with a beaming smile and said in a voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Qiao are you? You couldn't cheat on this one, could you? I suggest you just admit defeat now, beg me nicely, and maybe I'll spare you the humiliation of shouting at the school gate." I stared at her coldly. "I suggest you don't get too cocky. It's not decided yet who'll be doing the shouting. Besides, our bet was for the end of the semester, not midterms. No need to be in such a rush to lose." Her expression darkened, and she snapped, "Fine, have it your way." I was trying to be nice. The midterm exams were modeled after the national college entrance exams and lasted for 3 full days. I had never seriously taken an exam of that intensity before, and by the end of those 3 days, I was completely drained. Then began the somewhat agonizing wait for the results. It was only when the grades were being handed out that I realized I was so nervous my hands were trembling. Before I could even process that, all the test papers had been placed in my hands. All around me, classmates were whispering and comparing scores, filling the classroom with a noisy buzz. Some even came over to ask about my results, but I couldn't hear any of it. I could only feel my heart pounding faster and faster as I took out my calculator and started adding up my scores, subject by subject. Chinese 98, Math 106, English 102, History 94, Biology 76, Politics 83, 559 points. A small note was also passed along and landed on my desk, ranked 27th in the class, 236th in the grade. My heart sank. In a class of 56, 27th place is squarely in the middle of the pack. It was a world of difference compared to the top student. Just then, Qiu Ting's results were announced. She stood at the very front, the center of attention. A small crowd had gathered around her, all talking excitedly. I clutched my exam paper tightly, my heart sinking into a knot. I didn't even need to look to know that Qiu Ting had taken first place again. Sure enough, a girl looked at her paper and exclaimed, 683, "Qiu Ting, you're absolutely incredible." "Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. A148 in math. With a score like that, Tsinghua is a sure thing, right?" "What did Jiang Shuhua get?" 679, second place. Jiang Shuhua said calmly, offering Qiu Ting a smile. "Couldn't beat you again this time. I'm impressed." Qiu Ting didn't say a word, merely curling the corner of her mouth into a slight smile as she glanced back. I knew it, she was looking at me. Only now do I realize the chasm between us. My angry words back then were born of ignorance and recklessness. Even if I study myself to death, cramming every waking and sleeping moment, there's still a gap of over 100 points between her and me. And I know all too well that closing those last 100 points will be the hardest part. I don't think I can ever truly surpass her. In that moment, I could clearly hear the sound of my heart breaking. Maybe I'm just not good enough. I can't measure up to her. I was always just a failure. All my previous efforts were nothing but futile gestures to make myself feel better. Not far away, Jiang Shuhua was walking towards me. He stood over my desk, looking down at me with a gaze that mixed disgust and pity. "Qiao, are you?" Tingting said she'll let this go if you're willing to apologize to her. Tingting is a kind person. Please, don't make any more trouble. Okay. Qiao followed, and the surrounding classmates gradually quieted down to watch. "Qiao, are you? Congratulations. I heard you've made great progress. But you know, one has to accept their own mediocrity. Look at how hard you've worked, and this is pretty much your ceiling. I don't ask for much, just apologize to me, and I'll forgive you, then we can consider this matter over." Her expression was so condescending, as if she were doling out charity to a beggar, that little bit of self-pity in my heart instantly exploded into a towering rage. I'm not afraid of others looking down on me, but if I were to back down, I would look down on myself. I slowly stood up, meeting her gaze directly. "There are still 3 months left. It's too early to tell who will come out on top. So don't celebrate just yet. Talk about stubborn to the bitter end," she said with a laugh. "I hope you'll still be this tough when the time comes." I was quite disappointed with my own results, but my homeroom teacher and several other teachers singled me out for special praise. Holding my test paper, they said happily, "Look at Qiao, are you? In just 2 months, she's gone from the bottom of the class to 27th place. What does this prove? It proves that hard work pays off. Everyone should follow Qiao Ayu's example. You must strive for progress and never give up." Down there, I felt a sense of inner conflict. On one hand, I was smug and proud of the progress I'd made in just 2 short months. On the other hand, I was acutely aware of the vast gap that still lay between me and Qiao Ting. 3 months, over 100 points, and more than 200 places in the rankings. Am I really up for this? 10. After school, my old group of girlfriends came looking for me again. "Qiao, are you?" said a girl carrying a Chanel bag, putting her arm around my shoulders. "Haven't seen you come out to hang lately. What's up?" "Oh, she's a proper student now," another girl said with a sneer. "Too busy studying to hang out with slackers like us. Come on, there's a thing tonight with a live band, your favorite. Let's go unwind and grab a drink." I looked at them, feeling hesitant. I'm genuinely smitten. I've just been utterly exhausted lately, burning the candle at both ends. It's been brutal. Sometimes I even get drowsy while eating. Going out for a drink feels like it's been ages. I've made so much progress. Surely I can take a little break, just a quick one. Alright, let's go check it out. I slung my bag over my shoulder and followed them to hail a cab. "Exactly," my friend laughed. "Our family's loaded. What's the point of killing ourselves studying? They'll just end up working for us anyway, bunch of paupers." I didn't say anything and just followed her into the bar. This place is usually pretty quiet at this hour, but there was an event on, so it was already getting crowded. A steady stream of attractive men and women filed in through the entrance, the flashing lights casting a dazzling yet fragmented kaleidoscope of colors on the floor. "Let's start with the 3888 package," my friend said from the booth, handing me the tablet. "Charu, what are you drinking?" I ordered a drink at random and just sat there, zoning out. A few guys came over from the side and asked if we wanted to join them for a drink. Amidst the deafening music and the clamor of voices, I suddenly felt out of place. This place used to feel like a second home to me, yet now I feel completely out of my element. A profound, inexpressible sense of guilt welled up inside me. I shouldn't be wasting my time here. How many words have I managed to memorize all this time? What about my words for today? "Charu, what are you spacing out for? Drink up." The girl next to me gave me a nudge and poured me a glass of beer. One of the guys just pulled out his phone and asked me, "Can I get your WeChat?" Watching it all, I just felt a hollow, aching emptiness inside. I told myself, I have to get out of here, no time to waste. I shot up from my seat, muttered I've got something to do, and bolted for the door. The people behind me were all shouting, "Where are you going? Finish your drink first. What's one more day? Aren't you tired? Just take a break." Those voices were like the whispers of a devil, tempting me to fall back into my old ways. I fled the bar as if escaping, hailed the first cab I saw, and threw myself inside. It wasn't until I was seated in the car that I finally let out a breath, utterly drained. Watching the bustling traffic and neon-lit nightlife outside the window, I felt an indescribable melancholy. But I didn't have time to dwell on that melancholy. I was going to be late getting back today, and I had no idea how Yin Shoqing was going to chew me out. He might even hit me. Yet, the oppressive mood I'd felt earlier seemed to be lifting. That sense of guilt had vanished, too, when I got home. Yin Shoqing was indeed waiting for me in the room. Feeling a bit guilty, I walked in pretending nothing had happened. "Where have you been?" He stood by the window, his dark, tousled hair catching a few strands of golden light. I licked my lips, answering awkwardly, "Nowhere special. Just had some things to take care of today." Yin Shoqing turned his head and fixed his gaze on me. "Have you been drinking?" His nose is sharper than a bloodhound's. He caught the scent of alcohol on me from just one sip. Exposed and humiliated, I flew into a rage. I tossed my bag onto the table and snapped, "Yeah, I went for a drink. So what? I've been studying for days. I deserve a break." Yin Shoqing's gaze was icy as he looked at me. "What did you score?" I went and asked around. 559, right, ranked 27th. No chance for a top-tier university. At best, you'll get into a second-tier one. "Chow are you?" He tilted his head slightly to look down at me, the disdain in his eyes utterly unconcealed. "You think you're so great, don't you?" His words cut deep into my pride. And I snapped in anger. "I've only been studying for a little over 2 months, and all you do is call me stupid and say I'm no good. What kind of person does that?" Yin Shoqing crossed his arms and said, "What, you want me to lie and say you're doing great? Chow are you? What gives you the right to go out drinking? Do you have any idea how far behind the top student you are? With your level, you think you can get into Tsinghua. Even if Tsinghua became a vocational school, they wouldn't take you." "None of your business," I snapped, my patience finally snapping. The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. I owe my tremendous progress entirely to Yin Shoqing. He tutored me here every single day without a single complaint, and he flat out refused to accept any money from my mom. What could a Tsinghua University Master's to Ph.D. student possibly want from tutoring a high schooler like me? And here I am, showing no gratitude. But before I could even speak, Yin Shoqing's expression darkened, his thick, dark eyebrows lifted slightly, a flicker of anger crossing his face. "Fine, you said it yourself, it's really none of my business. Talk about a dog trying to catch mice, I should mind my own business." With that, he stormed out the door, slamming it shut behind him. My eyes stung with tears. Casting my pride aside, I ran out after him. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, I thrust my hand in to stop them. The elevator doors closed on my hand and then reopened, and I cried out in pain, "Are you insane? Chow are you?" Yin Shoqing strode out and grabbed my wrist. "What are you trying to do now?" Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face as I choked out, "I'm sorry, Yin Shoqing. I was wrong. Please forgive me." His brow furrowed, as if he wanted to scold me, but his voice softened when he finally spoke. "You got me, crybaby." Sitting at the desk, I sobbed as I pulled out my test paper. "Stop crying," Yin Shoqing said roughly, wiping my face with a tissue. "You should be ashamed to even cry. How did you only get such a low score? Did all your studying go in one ear and out the other?" I opened my mouth to wail, but he immediately clamped his hand over it. All right. I'll admit you've made some decent progress. Now hurry up and review the questions you got wrong. We've done a problem like this before. How did you still get it wrong? Wait, did I not explain this? What on earth have you been listening to? And this one here, if I'm not mistaken, this is the 3rd time you've gotten a similar type of problem wrong. Chow are you? You'd better perk up those ears and listen carefully. The evening passed both quickly and slowly, filled with Yin Shoqing's explanations of the test papers. Around 10 o'clock, Yin Shoqing put down his pen, looked at me earnestly, and asked, "Chow are you? What do you think is the purpose of your studies?" Without a moment's hesitation, I replied, "To outdo Chiu Ting and Jiang Shuhua." Yin Shoqing said nothing. He stood up and walked over to the bedside. He was very tall, probably around 188 centimeters, with a slender and upright posture. The night enveloped him, and his profile was buried in shadow, difficult to make out clearly. "Chow are you? We study for our own sake." Yin Shoqing's voice was very soft, fading into the boundless night. I hope you understand that studying isn't everything, but it can open doors for you. We don't want to spend our lives being chosen for us, stuck on a single path with no alternatives. Learning is what helps you reach for higher opportunities. Only then, he turned to look at me, his gaze profound. Will you have the right to choose your own path in life? I stared at him, dumbfounded, my mouth agape but unable to utter a word. Yin Xiu Cheng didn't seem to expect a response from me. He walked over, patted my head, and then left with his bag, before leaving. He left me with these words, "You did well this time. Great improvement. Keep it up." Watching his retreating figure, I couldn't help but break into a silly grin. 11. In the days that followed, I stopped going out to have fun and threw myself wholeheartedly into my studies. I suddenly understood what Yin Xiuqing meant. Learning is the right we grant ourselves to choose our own path in life. I started waking up earlier and going to bed later, getting up at 5 a.m. every day. I would memorize 100 vocabulary words before heading to morning study hall. I took notes during class and reviewed them during the breaks. I even gave up my midday nap, opting to silently review recent lessons with my eyes closed, which also helped them rest. After school in the evening, I walk home to get some exercise, listening to English audio with my headphones. Yin Xiuqing tutors me for 2 to 3 hours, and after he leaves, I review on my own for another hour, before going to sleep. I go over everything I learned that day one more time. If I can't remember something, I get up immediately to check my notes, and I don't sleep until I have it all straight in my head. I even dream about studying. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, startled, and rush to look up a specific concept. At first, my mom was thrilled to see me making such great progress. She bragged about it to everyone and cooked me all sorts of delicious meals at home, but now even she's worried. And every day at mealtime she anxiously urges me, "Ruru, take a break. What will you do if you work yourself sick?" But I can't rest. The moment I stop, I'm overwhelmed by a deep sense of guilt. I even find myself wondering, even in the bathroom, what Xiuqing is doing right now. Are you studying? If that's the case, I've fallen behind her again, haven't I? The days just slipped by like that, and sometimes I even lost track of time. I could only watch as my grades climbed at a frankly terrifying pace. 3rd monthly exam, 16th place. 4th monthly exam, 8th place. By the 5th monthly exam, I had even surpassed Jiang Shuhua, only to lose to Qiuting by a mere 3 points. When the results came out, Jiang Shuhua was completely stunned. He stared at his exam paper in disbelief, going over it again and again, and only after checking every single score did he sink heavily into his chair. I saw him look back at me. His eyes filled with utter disbelief and shock. I avoided his gaze and focused on reviewing my own mistakes. No one accuses me of cheating anymore. All my classmates have gotten used to my progress because they can see how hard I work. Yet, they're still shocked every single time the grades come out. No one looks down on me now. Instead, everyone comes to me for help, asking questions, and even copying my answers and papers. I've become what they call an academic legend. My teachers treated me like a treasure, and I was held up as a model student everywhere. My perfect scoring essays and exam papers were plastered all over the hallway. I gradually grew accustomed to all of this, and the sense of pride faded. Now, only one conviction fuels my almost manic drive. To surpass Qiuting and get into Tsinghua University, Jiang Shuhua stopped me just as I was leaving the school gate. "Qiao, are you?" He stood before me, but the look in his eyes was different. Gone was the usual contempt. The law of the jungle is survival of the fittest, and humans are no different. The reverence for strength is hardwired into human DNA. Jiang Shuhua has finally lost the right to look down on me, and he no longer dares to. Yet, I can't be bothered to argue with him anymore. He's already a defeated man. "Qiao, are you? You're really something," he said with a complicated expression, as if he didn't recognize me anymore. "It's like you've become a different person." I had no time for his nonsense and said directly, "Just say what's on your mind." Jiang Shuhua glanced at me, then looked down and said, "I hope you can call off your bet with Qiuting. We're all classmates. There's no need to make things so ugly. If this escalates, it won't reflect well on you either. Could you talk to her and just let the whole thing go?" I was honestly amused by his sheer audacity. "Me? Why me? Why don't you have her come to me instead? Ting Ting is a bit proud. She'll never back down, and it's not like you have some deep-seated grudge against her. Besides, the reason you've improved so much is because we motivated you. Can't you just swallow your pride and apologize to her?" He frowned at me, as if what he was saying was the most obvious thing in the world. Looking at Jiang Shuhua's face, I felt a wave of disgust churning inside me. How dare he have the nerve to make demands of me so righteously? How could he even bring himself to say that? I must have been blind to have liked him before. "Thanks, I don't owe a damn bit of thanks, if there's any thanks to be given. I only have myself and my own blood, sweat, and tears to thank." I let out a cold snort and glared at him, saying, "What the hell do you lot amount to? You think you deserve my thanks? If you're that bored, go get a real job instead of acting like a lunatic here." I was about to leave when it suddenly dawned on me. I couldn't tell if this was Jiang Shuhua's own idea, or if Qiu Ting was scared and had sent him to confront me. A malicious smile crept across my lips. Is Qiu Ting scared or something? Go tell her this. If she's willing to get on her knees and apologize to me, I'll be the bigger person and let it slide this once. How about that? A flash of anger passed through Jiang Shuhua's eyes. "You've gone too far. Qiao are you? I'm talking to you now as a courtesy. When you lose and make a fool of yourself, don't say I didn't give you a chance." I let out a laugh, lifting my head to stare fixedly at Jiang Shuhua. I said with utter contempt, "A loser like you. You're not even worthy. Come talk to me again when you've surpassed me." "You," Jiang Shuhua was utterly enraged. He coldly tossed out a "you're impossible," and stormed off. I watched his retreating figure and finally let out the breath I'd been holding in my chest. Damn it, this is awesome. 12. In the final month leading up to exams, both Qiu Ting and I started studying like crazy. Now we both know, it's just the two of us who are real rivals. In this contest, there are only winners and losers, no draws. The winner is showered with accolades and revered by all. The loser's reputation is ruined, left in utter disgrace. Qiu Ting had always been regarded as the so-called prodigy. She always claimed she never studied at home and relied entirely on her natural smarts. Now she's stopped saying that. She doesn't even go to the bathroom after class, just buries herself in her books all day, several times. I've seen her come to class in the morning with huge dark circles under her eyes, a clear sign she'd been up all night. Unlike her initial nonchalance, she's genuinely starting to feel threatened by me. A sense of pride swelled within me, but so did a growing urgency. I wished there were 25 hours in a day just for studying. The onlookers in class were getting riled up. When I first declared I would challenge Qiu Ting, everyone was unanimously mocking me. However, after the 5th monthly exam passed, no one called me a daydreamer anymore. Real capability silences all critics. No one dares to look down on the strong. In fact, many people are speculating that I might genuinely surpass Qiu Ting. I even saw Qiu Ting arguing with one of her lackeys about it once, because the follower had told her not to worry so much. Qiu Ting lost control and snapped at her. "What do I have to worry about? Is Qiao are you even worthy of making me anxious? If you can't speak properly, then shut your mouth." The lackey didn't dare to speak and walked away, visibly displeased. I overheard it from the side but didn't get angry. Qiu Ting's behavior was a clear sign that she was scared. She knew there was a real chance I could surpass her. Finally, the day of the final exam arrived. The day before the exam, Yin Xiuqing didn't tutor me anymore. He handed me a carton of fresh milk and said, "Drink it while it's warm, then get straight to bed, get some rest early tonight. You'll need your energy for the battlefield tomorrow." My heart was already racing with nerves. The exam was about to start, and a sudden wave of panic washed over me. My forehead and palms were sweating non-stop. What if I don't score higher than Qiu Ting? What if I'm not as good as her? She's been working really hard lately. She already had a solid foundation, and with all this extra effort, she's probably improved a lot. Am I really going to have to stand at the school gate and announce I'm a total failure? I don't think I could go on living. I'll become a laughingstock, the very joke that cements Qiu Ting's legendary status. Yin Xiuqing. I looked at him in panic, my voice trembling. What if I can't score higher than her? I thought he would, as usual, be brutally sarcastic and tell me I was good for nothing. I never expected Yin Xiuqing to reach out and pat my head. His hand was a little rough, dry and warm, and it seemed to magically soothe my unease. "Hey, Qiao are you doubting me? Are you saying the students I taught are worse than others? Don't build up others' confidence while deflating our own." As he spoke, He crouched by the head of the bed, looking at me. Yin Xiucheng's pupils were dark and profound. When he looked directly at someone, it felt as if he could draw their very soul in. Suddenly, for no reason at all, I felt my face grow warm. After a long moment, he smiled. "You can do this. You're actually really smart. You just had some gaps in your foundation before, but you've caught up now. You're definitely stronger than anyone else. If I say you can win, then you can win." This was the first time Yin Xiucheng gave me a genuine, proper compliment. My eyes stung, and tears began to well up. Yet, my heart truly grew calm. I thought, even if I didn't believe in myself, I should believe in Yin Xiucheng. I can do this. 13. I arrived at school first thing the next morning, strangely enough. The nervousness from the night before was completely gone, replaced by an extreme sense of calm. Xiuting arrived early too. We exchanged just one glance, and both saw the fighting spirit in each other's eyes. She sat in her seat and said to me, "You've missed your chance for regrets, Chiaru. My achievements didn't come from cutting corners. You'll soon find out that trash will always be trash." I didn't argue back. I just smiled and asked in return, "All this talk, are you scared?" Hatred filled Xiuting's eyes, and I could hear her teeth grinding. A moment later, she snorted coldly and turned away. The exam bell rang before I knew it. The test paper was placed on my desk. I looked at the paper, took a slow, deep breath, and began. First question, I knew this one. Question 2, I've done it before. Question 3, easy. I hadn't even noticed the time passing. When I finished all the questions and looked up, less than 60 minutes had gone by on the wall clock. I didn't get cocky. Instead, I settled down and checked my work over and over again. Sure enough, on my second review, I realized I had made a careless mistake by misreading the question. A cold sweat broke out, and I hurriedly corrected it. The moment I fixed it, the bell rang. Time to hand in the paper. The second and third exams went smoothly. When I got home that night, I didn't study anymore and just went straight to bed. At this point, cramming wouldn't make a difference. I figured I was better off getting a good night's sleep to recharge. When I woke up, I felt completely refreshed and clear-headed. I used to only get about 5 hours of sleep each day. Now that I'm getting a full 8 hours, I feel like a whole new person. But for Xiuting, it's a different story. I looked at her. The dark circles under her eyes were even worse than before. Her eyes were sunken, with heavy bags beneath them, and she was squinting, silently reciting something to herself. She looked as if a demon had drained all the life out of her. It was obvious she hadn't slept a wink last night. He must have been up all night cramming. I shook my head. What's the point of cramming at the last minute now? Seeing her like that actually calmed me down, and I became more composed while working on the problems. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Just when I thought the exam was going to end smoothly, something unexpected happened. As I reached the final question and looked at the paper, my eyes widened in shock. The last major problem was a geometry one. I wasn't sure how to draw this auxiliary line. Due to scheduling issues, the math exam, which was supposed to be the second session, was moved to the last one. Math has always been my weak point. My logical thinking isn't the strongest. But these days, I've done almost every suitable practice problem I could find. I believe hard work can make up for a lack of natural talent. The previous questions went quite smoothly, and I didn't run into any I couldn't solve. But this major problem is really tricky. If you don't read it carefully, it seems deceptively simple, just a standard, formulaic exercise. Only upon closer inspection does the trap here become apparent. A cold sweat began to bead on my forehead, and my hands started to tremble slightly. This question is worth 15 points, not a huge amount, but certainly not insignificant either. But for Xiuting and me, locked in a battle where every single point counts, getting it wrong would be like taking one wrong step and plummeting into an abyss. I couldn't help but look up and glance at Xiuting. She looked completely at ease. After jotting down a number on the paper, she neatly set her pen aside, stretched her arms, and then rested her head on the desk. A slight smile even began to play at the corners of her mouth. My heart sank. Maybe Xiuting didn't read the question carefully, or maybe she actually knows how to solve it. My mind was in turmoil. The July heat was unbearable, and the incessant chirping of cicadas outside the window grated on my nerves. A drop of sweat trickled down my chin and fell onto the desk. In an instant, my mind went completely blank. I'm done for, I thought. I've lost. But just as I was on the verge of breaking down, a face suddenly flashed through my mind. The pale face was half cast in shadow by the setting sun. Yin Xiu Cheng stood by the window. Looking at me calmly, he said, "Qiao are you? What are you studying for?" What did I say back then? I said I wanted to outdo Qiu Ting. I wanted to get into Tsinghua University. "No," he said, lifting his gaze to the window, his voice mingling with the night air and a gentle breeze. "You study for yourself, to gain the power to choose your own path in life. Qiaoru, you study for yourself, only you, yourself, yes, the right to choose one's own path in life." It was like a bucket of cold water had been dumped over my head, snapping me back to my senses. I've studied to the point of obsession. I've poured all my attention into Qiu Ting, completely forgetting the true purpose of learning. I study so that I am not merely the one being chosen, it is to grant me the right to choose. Qiu Ting is nothing more than a brief episode in my life. If I keep my focus solely on her, I will never break free from this confined space. I let out a breath, steadying my nerves, and stopped looking at Qiu Ting as she set down her pen. All the sounds around me faded away. I poured all of my focus into the problem. The clock's hands ticked away. I don't know how long it was before a flash of insight finally struck me. My math teacher's words echoed in my ears. In geometry, you should always consider special auxiliary lines first. I suddenly understood exactly how to draw that auxiliary line, not daring to waste a second. I quickly drew the line and then raced against the clock to write out the solution steps on the answer sheet. Just as my pen put down the final word, the bell rang. Time's up. I pushed the answer sheet away and slumped back into my chair, utterly spent. A gust of wind blew in from the window, chilling my damp back. The back of my shirt was soaked through with cold sweat. After what felt like an eternity, I finally mustered a sliver of strength to look ahead. Qiu Ting was looking back at me. Our eyes met, and a spark seemed to crackle in the air between us. Neither of us spoke. At this point, any more words would have been pointless. In 3 days, we'll see who's the real deal and who's all talk. 14. The wait for the results feels like an eternity. Yet, it also seems to pass in the blink of an eye. I've been in a daze for the past 3 days, completely unable to focus on studying. Every time I open a book, all I can see are visions of the final exam questions. I've been dreaming every single night. Sometimes, I dream I've won. I scored over 700 points, far surpassing Qiu Ting, and I laugh out loud in my sleep. Other times, I dream I've lost, defeated by a single point. I'm standing at the school gate, bowing in apology to Qiu Ting's mocking face. The sudden, thunderous jeers from those around me jolted me awake from a nightmare. Drenched in cold sweat, on Weibo, I kept reposting all sorts of good luck images, thanking the little dog for warding off bad luck, then thanking Empress Zhen Huan for blocking the haters. I felt like I was losing my mind, but before I could even process it all, the moment to check my grades had arrived. Sitting at the desk, my emotions kept swinging between tension and calm. On one hand, I felt the outcome no longer mattered. The results I achieved today spoke for themselves, as far as I'm concerned. I've already succeeded, yet on the other hand, the mere thought of Qiu Ting overshadowing me once again filled me with fury and utter despair. I was caught in this internal tug-of-war with myself. I could tell Qiu Ting was nervous too. She kept taking deep breaths. Jiang Shuhua was sitting beside her, trying to comfort her. "Don't worry, Ting Ting, with Qiao Yu's level, there's no way she'll outscore you," a lackey chimed in. "Yeah, Qiu Ting, Qiao Yu just got lucky before. She could never catch up to you in a million years." I didn't pay them any mind at all. My eyes were fixed on the teacher walking into the classroom. Our homeroom teacher, beaming from ear to ear, walked up to the podium with a broad smile. "Settle down, everyone. The final exam results are in. Settle down." The whole class returned to their seats and fell silent, with over 50 pairs of eyes locked intently on him. Our class did really well on this exam. Not only did we get the highest average score in the grade, but the top 2 students in the entire year are also in our class. The homeroom teacher's gaze swept over me and Qiu Ting before she picked up the list in her hand. I held my breath. You could have heard a pin drop in the classroom. Both Qiu Ting and I knew those 2 people had to be us. But there's a world of difference between first and second place. Second place means nothing. Only the winner takes it all. Second place. The teacher said, drawing out the words. My heart began to pound uncontrollably, each beat so forceful it felt like it might leap from my chest. Second place, Qiu Ting, 697 points, an excellent result. Qiu Ting, you even scored perfect marks in 2 subjects. Keep up the great work. A bolt of lightning cracked across the sky. Qiu Ting's body jolted violently before she collapsed onto Jiang Shuhua, yet Jiang Shuhua made no move to catch her. His mouth fell open as he turned to stare at me in utter shock, as if he'd seen a ghost. First place, the teacher continued. At that moment, an extraordinary calm settled over my heart. I have complete confidence in myself, a confidence born of absolute capability. First place, Qiao are you? That's incredible, I'm absolutely speechless. Qiao are you, 701 points. Keep up these results and getting into Tsinghua is a sure thing. Qiao are you? You must keep studying hard, don't get complacent or slack off. Qiu Ting spun around so sharply that she knocked the desk behind her askew. Her face was deathly pale, her expression indescribable, a look so ferocious it seemed she wanted to tear the flesh from my bones. I felt that in the next second, she would lunge forward and tear me apart. I gave her a slight nod and mouthed the words, "Don't forget your promise." The classroom fell silent for a moment, then erupted into chaos. Everyone craned their necks to look at me in an exaggerated manner. They didn't even gasp, just stared in sheer shock. After a long pause, everyone ignored the homeroom teacher and burst into a loud uproar. Holy crap! Qiao Ayu is absolutely incredible. She really got first place. Unbelievable. It's only been 1 semester. She might actually be a genius. I'm speechless. I'm actually speechless. This is insane. Is Qiu Ting really going to have to apologize to her? Their faces were a mix of shock and admiration, their eyes filled with disbelief and awe. I looked around, and a feeling I couldn't quite put into words welled up inside me. Remember how they were? Their attitude was completely different back then. They all laughed at me, delusional, clueless, pie in the sky, full of hot air. That's what they said about me. But 5 months later, I proved every single one of them wrong with my skills. Now they all know that Qiao Ayu wasn't just talking big. I have the absolute capability to back up my ambitions. I damn well have what it takes to make good on my word. I was basking in all the praise and admiration when, suddenly, a smiling face flashed through my mind. The face of Yin Xiucheng. I thought, I have to tell him this good news. 15. As I left the school gate that evening, I could feel everyone's eyes on me. They were pointing and whispering about me. That's Qiao Ayu, right? Damn, she's something else. A lot of people used to act this way before, but back then they'd say, that's Qiao Ayu. The troublemaker, a jumble of emotions churned inside me. Just as I was about to walk away, my arm was seized in a fierce grip. The pain made me suck in a sharp breath. I turned to find Qiu Ting standing there. Oh, right, she still had a bet to settle. I'd completely forgotten. Qiu Ting looked utterly unhinged. Chronic sleep deprivation had hollowed her cheeks and left dark, bruise-like circles under her eyes, giving her a ghostly, spectral appearance. Her face was contorted, her eyes bloodshot. As she waved a test paper and shouted, "Qiao Ayu, this question of mine was marked wrong. I just went to the teacher and got the points back. My score is 701, 5 now, I'm number 1. You didn't beat me, I'm the top scorer." The classmates around her erupted in an uproar. This famous bet was practically known to everyone in the school. By now, everyone had crowded around the entrance to watch the commotion, completely blocking the school gate. How about that? She glared at me viciously, her nails digging almost into my flesh. Trash will always be trash. The curve of her mouth was exaggerated and twisted. You'll never beat me. The onlookers, caught off guard by this turn of events, gathered around us and whispered, "Well, it is Qiu Ting after all. She's always been number 1. She really does have the skills. What a shame. Just 5 points short. Qiao Ayu did incredibly well, but the time was just too tight. The voices around me were a chaotic din. Some cheering for Qiu Ting, others feeling sorry for me. I wrenched my hand away violently, sending Qiu Ting stumbling backward. "Qiao Ayu, say it. Admit you're worthless right now. Say it. You lost the bet. Now pay up. Don't make me lose all respect for you." Qiu Ting lunged at me again, but I sidestepped her and shrugged my backpack off my shoulders, thinking I was about to fulfill our bet. Qiu Ting's eyes lit up with excitement. She immediately pulled out her phone and started filming me. How malicious, she actually wants to record this whole thing. Well, I guess I don't need to feel sorry for her anymore. I slowly unzipped my bag, pulled out a test paper, and unfolded it for everyone to see. The original score of 95 had been crossed out and replaced with a 100. I smiled, looking Qiu-Ting straight in the eye, and said, "Sorry, but I found those 5 points too. My score should be 706. Go on, admit you're not as good as me, and you owe me an apology." I threw her own words right back at her. "Qiu-Ting, you made the bet, now pay up, don't make me lose respect for you." The color visibly drained from Qiu-Ting's face, the furious blush giving way to a deathly pallor, her face ashen. She stammered, "No way, this can't be, I'm number one, I'm number one." The entire hall erupted in an uproar. In that instant, nearly everyone gasped in shock. The place instantly exploded into chaos, with everyone talking at once, most of it mocking Qiu-Ting. Watching them accuse Qiu-Ting, I suddenly felt a wave of disorientation. Back when I challenged her, everyone said I was talking nonsense. It was as if everything had been turned upside down. Qiu-Ting stood there, utterly devastated. Her legs gave way, and she slumped against a classmate beside her. Perhaps feeling embarrassed, the little hanger-on who had been following her all along gave her a shove and vanished into the crowd. Only Qiu-Ting remained, sitting on the ground with a vacant stare, still muttering, "Impossible, impossible." Seeing her in this state, so utterly crushed and almost out of her mind, I suddenly found the whole thing rather tiresome. Qiu-Ting was someone who had grown accustomed to sitting on the throne. Once she was pulled down, her entire world collapsed. Someone like that is no longer worthy of being my opponent. I looked down at Qiu-Ting and said softly, "If you're not willing to honor our agreement, so be it, but I look down on you." With that, I turned to leave. Everyone wordlessly made way for me. I had only taken a few steps. Just as I was about to get in the car, when Qiu-Ting's hoarse shout suddenly came from behind me. "Qiao, are you? I'm sorry, I admit you're better than me, but I won't accept this defeat. Next time, I'll definitely take back first place." I paused for a moment without looking back, got in the car, and went home. 16. I became an overnight sensation. At home, my parents were laughing themselves silly every single day. Several times, my mom would just start giggling to herself in the middle of a meal. She'd look at me with a dazed, faraway expression. "Oh my goodness, I must be dreaming. I can't believe I gave birth to such a clever daughter." Maybe I should have tried for university back then, who knows? I might have even gotten into Tsinghua or Peking University. "Hey, are you really my daughter? You weren't switched at birth or something, were you? Oh my, I'm just too gorgeous. I'm so incredibly happy." My dad, meanwhile, was off to the side, curling his lip in disdain. "If the kid's smart, she definitely didn't get it from you. That's all me, for sure. You think our daughter might be a genius, like 180 IQ kind of genius. We should get her tested." My mom slammed her chopsticks down with a clatter. "Bullshit, she definitely takes after me. You can't even manage to buy groceries right." They started bickering back and forth, while I just sat there laughing. Back then, the atmosphere at home wasn't this good. My parents spoiled me. But I never studied. I was out at the bars every day and wouldn't come home until late at night. The only reason they ever went to the school was to get chewed out, or they'd be sitting at the back during parent-teacher conferences, utterly mortified. At home, it was just my parents' constant sighs of disappointment over my failures. But ever since I started studying hard, it seems like everything changed. I really made my mom proud. After dinner, I lay in bed thinking about when to tell Yin Qiu-Ting this good news. The reason I was able to achieve this result is, aside from my own hard work, largely thanks to Yin Qiu-Ting. I know that without him, I could have studied myself to death and still never made this much progress. As a true genius, he taught me not just knowledge, but how to learn. These are things no amount of money can buy. I closed my eyes and pressed my arm against my face. Every single moment from the past flashed before my eyes. It was so hard, unbelievably hard. Honestly, I don't even know how I made it through that time. If I had to do it all over again, I'm not sure I'd have the courage to burn my boats like that. People only see the glamour, the fact that I reached the top at an unbelievable speed, but they never saw the sleepless nights, the days of uncertainty, the nightmares that jolted me awake. I haven't taken a single nap since, rain or shine, school day or holiday. I survive on just 5 hours of sleep. In the beginning, it was truly grueling. I felt completely hollowed out. Countless times, I thought about giving up, about taking a break, about just resting for a while. But in the end, I gritted my teeth and pushed through every single time. Behind the so-called miracle lies my endless days and nights of tears and sweat. The bitterness within it is something only I can truly understand. Just as my eyes began to sting, the door was suddenly knocked. I sat up and saw it was Yin Xiuqing, dressed in black. He leaned against the doorframe with his arms crossed. For once, there was no sneer or mockery on his face, just a genuine, earnest smile. Hey, his eyes were full of mirth. A faint smile playing on his rosy lips. I heard you got first place. Congratulations. My heart started pounding wildly. I sprang up from the bed like a carp leaping from water and grabbed him, exclaiming excitedly, I scored 706. I'm number one. Am I amazing or what? I never used to share my joys with anyone, but now I realize, he's the only one I truly want to share my happiness with. Yes, 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 Yin Xiuqing laughed, playfully tugging at my cheeks. Seems you're not a complete idiot after all. No need for a checkup. He was pulling at me so much I could barely speak clearly, so I just dragged him over to the desk and showed him my test papers. One by one, I told him how tough the last problem was and how I finally managed to solve it. I explained to him that Xiuqing only lost to me because she got this particular question wrong. I also told him that I'd figured it out. From now on, I'm studying for my own sake. Yin Xiuqing didn't interrupt me. He just rested his head on his hand, smiled at me with his face turned slightly, and kept nodding. By the end, my mouth was parched, and I looked at him with shining eyes. Mr. Yin, what will we study next semester? Yin Xiuqing, however, fell silent. After a long moment, he reached out and ruffled my hair. You have graduated from my tutelage. Your master can rest easy now. You don't seriously expect me to be your private tutor forever, do you? I have classes to get back to, too. I was stunned. The words I was about to say got stuck in my throat, choking me. I looked at him, wanting to ask if he could please not go. It was all so sudden. But the words wouldn't come out. Right, I'd forgotten. Yin Xiuqing isn't my tutor. He's a master's and PhD candidate at Tsinghua. His future is dazzlingly bright, far more promising than my own. Tutoring me was just a fluke. Now he's going back to where he truly shines. I can't hold him back. Oh, that's so sudden. I forced a casual smile. Time really flies, doesn't it? Yin Xiuqing didn't say a word, just stared at me intently. His eyes were like obsidian, deep and shimmering. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks along with the temperature in the room, and an awkward silence fell between us. Just as I was about to break the silence, Yin Xiuqing suddenly stood up, outside the window. The streets were bustling with traffic, and the lights were dazzling. The night, laden with fantastical neon light, pressed in through the window. He leaned back against that vast expanse of night and smiled at me. Chiaru, I'll be waiting for you at Tsinghua. My eyes stung, and tears began to fall. Okay, I wiped away my tears. I'll come find you in a year, 17, by the time I returned to school. Everything had already been settled. I replaced Xiuqing as the new top student. Jiang Shuhua stopped me right after school on the very first day. He hesitated for a long moment before murmuring quietly, I broke up with Xiuqing. I was getting impatient. What are you trying to say? He gritted his teeth, wrestled with his words, and finally forced out a sentence. I'm sorry. I was in the wrong before. Ruru, do you think there's still a chance for us? I felt utterly disgusted and cut him off before he could even finish. Do you honestly think you're good enough for me? With that, I turned and walked away. Jiang Shuhua stood there, stunned. Even after I had left the school gates, I could still see him standing in the same spot. Xiuqing's drive to study has become even stronger. She's just like I used to be, studying with relentless determination every day, even during meals and before sleep. But I've adopted a more relaxed mindset. I believe health comes first. After paying close attention in class, I only study until 11 p.m. before going straight to bed. Getting enough sleep is essential for maintaining a healthy body. Xiuqing was obsessed with surpassing me, but I kept her thoroughly outmatched. Maybe she had backed herself into a corner. She didn't seem as sharp as before. The look in her eyes when she watched me grew more and more twisted. I felt like I had become an obsession of hers. I probably even haunted her nightmares. But it was no use. In every single exam, I held a solid, unshakable first place. She never got another chance to turn things around. Time passed slowly like that, and just as I had grown accustomed to that kind of life, the college entrance exams arrived. It was the same sweltering June heat as during last year's final exams, under a sky of clear, deep blue, vast and distant. The entire campus was filled with a sweltering wind and the shrill cries of cicadas. By some cursed twist of fate, I was assigned to the same exam hall as Cho Ting again. This time, however, I was seated in front, and she was behind me. I could feel her gaze boring into my back, intense enough to burn a hole through it, but I paid it no mind, pouring all my focus into the test paper in front of me. I'm so used to exam days, but this time, a long-forgotten sense of nervousness crept in. Time ticked by minute, and 5 minutes later, the bell rang. The world fell into a deep silence, broken only by the soft rustle of pens on paper. The National College Entrance Examination had begun. Looking back on the college entrance exams now, my memories feel a bit hazy. Those 3 days felt as long as 3 years, yet passed in the blink of an eye. When I put down my pen after the final subject, I was overcome with an indescribable feeling. With those 3 years of high school, my youth came to a dramatic and definitive close. Yet, I changed myself and turned my life around. Now, I truly have the power to choose my own path. After that exam, I finally let loose and had some real fun. I didn't even try to estimate my score. I completely put studying out of my mind. For the past year and a half, I haven't relaxed my studies for a single day. I was in a constant state of tension. Now that I don't need to study anymore, at first, I was actually taken aback when I woke up in the morning, feeling a bit empty. But I quickly adapted to this new rhythm of life. I slept in until 11 in the morning and stayed up late playing games at night. This time, my parents didn't scold me, and I felt no guilt while playing. I made it to the king rank in just one summer. My mom bought me thousands of yuan worth of in-game skins as a reward and even took me on a trip abroad. I went completely wild, like a dog off its leash, and almost forgot all about the exam results coming out. When the results came out, I didn't even have a chance to check them myself. My homeroom teacher was the one who told me my score, over the phone. His voice cracked with excitement as he told me, "Qiao are you, you're the provincial top scorer. 729 points. I was stunned, my mind going completely blank. Provincial top scorer, 729 points. In that moment, I didn't feel happy at all. Instead, I was just thinking. I still scored 10 points less than Yin Xiuqing. How on earth is his brain wired? Damn, is he an alien or something? The homeroom teacher's loud voice snapped me out of my wandering thoughts. "Qiao are you? You must choose your university applications carefully. When you're back at school, I'll help you go over them, okay? Peking University and Tsinghua are sure to call you. Oh, and maybe even the University of Hong Kong will reach out. What a dilemma, should it be Peking University or Tsinghua?" I smiled faintly and said softly, "Teacher, I'm going to Tsinghua, 18. On the way back, a banner had already been hung across the school gate. It read, "Congratulations to our Class 1, Senior 3 student Qiao Are You for becoming the National College Entrance Exam top scorer." A crowd of parents and students below were looking up, pointing at the banner and murmuring in admiration. "Whose child is that? That's absolutely incredible. Qiao Are You, that name sounds so familiar. Wasn't she the top student in the grade before?" I put on my hat and squeezed through the crowd from the side, intending to show my admission letter to the teachers. When I arrived at the office, all the teachers were there, each with a beaming smile on their face, looking at me as if I were a giant panda. The math teacher poured me a cup of tea and said affectionately, "You must be hot, have some water." I handed over the admission letter, and they took it one by one, murmuring their admiration. The history teacher took off his glasses and leaned in so close his face was almost touching the paper, examining it word by word. "Now this," he said, "a Tsinghua University admission letter is truly in a class of its own." A teacher nearby teased him, "What's the matter, Laro Li? Never seen a Tsinghua acceptance letter before?" The history teacher chuckled and scolded. "Well, I'll be damned, never seen a Tsinghua letter for someone who was at the bottom of the class. Qiao Are You, you're a bloody miracle. I'll have quite the story to tell next year's batch." I smiled and asked, "So, teachers, Where did Qiu Ting and Jiang Shuhua get in? To my surprise, the teacher's expressions changed the moment I said that. After a moment, the math teacher sighed and said, "That child, Qiu Ting, is far too competitive. She was dead set on Tsinghua University and only applied there. We couldn't stop her. Her parents don't seem to have talked any sense into her either. Her grades are good, but her performance this time was really a stretch. She didn't get in with her score, but she won't accept it. She insists on repeating the year, and nothing we say can change her mind. Repeating a year is so grueling, and she won't even be considered a fresh graduate anymore. What a shame." Jiang Shuhua forgot. Anyway, it was also a 985 university. Seems pretty good too. They quickly put the topic out of their minds. "Hey, Chiaru, our school is holding a big motivational rally in a few days. Your story is just incredible. You absolutely have to share it with the younger students to inspire them." I was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and agreed. 2 days later, the sports field was packed to the rafters. Perhaps I was too well known. Many first-year students and their parents came just to see me, along with a large number of graduates, all wanting to lay eyes on the province's top scorer. A dense, jostling sea of people. Even a sports meet had never seen a crowd like this. I stood on the stage as the principal meticulously recounted my entire academic journey from start to finish, even reading out every single one of my class rankings, beginning from the very bottom, second from last in the grade, 236th, 118th, 34th, second. And from then on, it was all first place. This vivid story of an underdog's triumph moved everyone in the room. Everyone cheered. Standing there above it all, I was overcome with emotion. I had almost forgotten about those days when I was counting down. There was a time when I was the cautionary tale, despised and shunned by everyone. I'm just an ordinary person. I get scared too. I falter. I'm afraid. And I have regrets. I've wept uncontrollably and spent sleepless nights haunted by nightmares. But in the end, I gritted my teeth and made it through. Looking back, it all feels like an incredible dream. In less than 2 short years, my life has been completely transformed. There are so many people I need to thank: my parents, Yin Xiuqing, and the teachers who never looked down on me. But the one I owe the most gratitude to is the version of myself who kept walking alone through the darkness. After enduring that desperate, dark night, I finally reached the dawn of victory. I picked up my speech and scanned the sports field, spotting Qiu Ting and Jiang Shuhua standing below in an instant. I don't know why they came. Maybe they just couldn't let it go. Through the sea of people, our eyes met for a fleeting moment before I quickly looked away. Qiu Ting was just a brief interlude in my life. Perhaps I should even be grateful for that interlude. Without that period of agonizing humiliation, there would have been no subsequent drive to better myself. But now, I don't even give them a second thought. I left them in the dust long ago. The summer sun was blinding, yet not a single person left the sports field. I unfolded my notes and briefly shared my personal journey and study methods. Finally, gazing at the sea of faces in the audience, I said solemnly, "Classmates, I hope you understand that while studying isn't everything, it can provide us with opportunities and choices. We don't want to spend our lives merely being chosen. Walking a path we have no say in. Learning is what allows us to knock on higher doors. Only then," I said into the microphone, "do we gain the right to choose our own lives." After a moment of profound silence, the room erupted into thunderous applause. I looked at the distant sky and smiled a smile of quiet relief. 18. I didn't hear from Qiu Ting again until the summer after my freshman year. Tsinghua was filled with the top students from across the country, and the academic atmosphere was on a completely different level from before. My days were busy and fulfilling. By chance, some high school classmates brought up Qiu Ting in the group chat. They said that after repeating her final year, Qiu Ting's mental state had worsened, and she still didn't get into Tsinghua University. However, Tsinghua had become her obsession. She wanted to repeat the year again, but her parents forced her to submit her college applications. It's actually a good university she got into, but her dream will never come true now. They were sighing and lamenting in the group chat. Some still remembered our past dispute and specifically tagged me, asking for my take on it. I didn't reply, just feeling a complex mix of emotions inside. Just as I was lost in thought, I suddenly bumped into someone right in front of me, rubbing my head. I looked up and was about to speak when Yin Xiu Cheng shoved a cup of bubble tea into my hand. "What are you daydreaming about? You're not even watching where you're going." With that, he took my hand and started walking, saying as we went, "I have a meeting this afternoon. How about we grab some bullfrog later? That place you love." It was a perfect August day, with the sun shining brightly. Story 2. The young master of the wealthy family once forced an airplane to stop for me, and I once disappeared for 3 years while pregnant. We got married, 9 years later. A younger and more beautiful girl appeared by the young master's side. She was lively and bold, and she also accompanied him to do all kinds of adventurous things. As for me, I had become a housewife, only able to stare at my daughter and forbid her from eating junk food. The young master said disappointedly, "Sherry, you've lost your vitality. My daughter also disliked me. Aunt Tracy is smart, beautiful and can earn money. What about you? You can only rely on my dad." The next day, I took my ID card and got a divorce from the young master. They might have forgotten, at the age of 22, I was brave enough to jump from a cliff into the deep sea in order to leave. At the age of 35, I still don't lack the courage to start all over again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. He City is adjacent to the capital city. It used to be a heavy industrial city, but now it has declined, in a computer company in He City. I pushed open the glass door. The girl at the front desk was browsing Douyin, and the sound was turned on. The young master Anthony is divorced. This couple is simply like a novel template. The ex-wife is a graduate of Peking University. Due to the opposition from the family, there was a heart-wrenching love story of him chasing and her running away. And she couldn't escape even with wings. It is rumored that the U-8420 flight grounding incident that caused a great stir back then was because the young master stopped the flight route in order to pursue his wife. Who would have thought that they would get divorced now? Indeed, marriages across social classes are very difficult. The girl at the front desk was focused on watching with her head down and didn't notice my arrival, so I accompanied her and listened to the whole 3-minute video. It was like looking back on the first half of my life. The girl finally saw me and nervously turned off the sound. "Ah, I'm sorry. Are you here for an interview?" "Yes, I made an appointment with the general manager at 10 o'clock for an interview as an algorithm engineer." The girl suddenly understood. "Oh, okay. Please fill out this information form." Associating with the video just now, the girl's eyes lit up. "The general manager said that you are also a graduate of Peking University. Have you ever met Anthony's wife?" Anthony's wife seems to be called. I had been married to Anthony for so long that I had lost my own name. I smiled and told her, "Sherry." Yes, Sherry." The girl looked dreamy. To be able to win over the young master, she must be an intellectual and beautiful woman. A beautiful woman. I twitched the corners of my mouth. But my daughter had just disliked the fat on my waist last week, saying that I didn't have the slender figure of an 18-year-old girl. Have you filled out the form? I'll take it to the interviewer." I handed the form to her. The girl at the front desk said, "Okay, this way, please, Ms. Sherry." She raised her head suddenly as if she had seen a ghost. The interview went smoothly. The general manager in charge of technology looked at my resume. The top science student in the province, the first in the computer science department of Peking University, and the first author of 3 top conference journals. Ms. Sherry, your resume is very impressive. However, I'm quite puzzled. Why haven't you worked since you graduated from university? My fingers clenched tightly on my pants, and I said in a low voice, "To take care of my child. I got accidentally pregnant at the age of 22. Anthony's mother was extremely dissatisfied with me. In Anthony's life plan, he should marry a daughter from a family of equal status, instead of me, a Cinderella from a poor background, even to force me to leave. His mother used extremely drastic means." The wealthy lady with red lips looked at me indifferently, and there was a row of bodyguards standing behind her. The sky was as black as ink. The sea water was bone-chillingly cold. I jumped off the high cliff. At that time, everyone thought I was dead. Perhaps because of the injury from the cliff jumping. My daughter was extremely weak when she was born. She had high needs, an allergic constitution, and refused to drink milk powder. Her little face was swollen and turned blue-purple, and she cried all night long. There was only me, a weak woman after childbirth. bustling around to take care of the newborn. The general manager understood. Ms. Sherry, you have been out of the workforce for too long. You can only start as a grassroots employee. Is that okay? I nodded without hesitation. Okay. The general manager stood up and shook my hand. Then welcome to join us. I shook his hand in return. And my heart suddenly started beating. It was beating as violently as when I learned that I had been admitted to Peking University. It was like taking the second step in my life. The next day, I walked into the company, and the general manager looked at me with an apologetic expression. Sorry, your offer has been cancelled. I was stunned. Why? He swallowed and carefully pointed in a direction. Our company has just been acquired, and the new president said that you can't be hired. I looked in the direction he pointed. The sunlight shone through the blinds, casting a golden edge on the man sitting in the leather boss chair. He was tall, wearing a high-end custom-made suit, under the smoky grey trousers. His ankles were wrapped in black socks. The leather chair slowly turned around. He had a straight nose, thin lips, a superior brow bone, and deep facial features. The only accessory on him was the watch on his wrist bone, which cost 8 figures. His noble aura was self-evident. The man suppressed his anger and said in a deep voice, Sherry, have you had enough of this? Our daughter is waiting for you to go back. His gaze swept over the yellowed walls of the company and the old water dispenser, and a mocking smile appeared in his eyes. Can you earn $6,000 a month here? I'm very busy and don't have time to play these tricks with you. I raised my eyes and looked at this man who I had been entangled with from the age of 20 to my 30s, and suddenly felt it was ridiculous. I heard myself say softly, what should I go back for? To take care of your mistress during her confinement. Anthony, I'm not that cheap. Anthony pressed his forehead. I've told you many times, I was drunk that night and don't remember anything. The sound of high heels tapping on the ground came. The door opened a crack, and a pair of feet wearing nude high heels stepped in. Tracy was wearing a professional suit. Under the smoky grey short skirt were a pair of snow-white long legs. Her long curly hair was draped over her shoulders, and her belly was slightly protruding, but her figure was still graceful. She placed the documents in her hand on Anthony's desk and said softly, Mr. Anthony, this is the acquisition contract of this company. Please take a look. It was like a sledgehammer hitting my body hard. I took a deep breath, held back the sourness at the corners of my eyes, and looked at him coldly. You really have some creativity. You come to find your ex-wife and bring your pregnant mistress with you. Anthony frowned and said impatiently, Tracy is different from you. She is the chief special assistant. If I don't bring her for the merger and acquisition case, who else can I bring? Forgot, you've never worked, so you don't understand these things. Each word was like a knife stabbing at my heart. My heart was like being covered with a damp cloth, and my chest ached with stuffiness. At the age of 18, I was a provincial top student with a promising future. The bright red banner with my name fluttered at the school gate, and everyone knew my name. The smiling faces of the villagers were full of vitality and simplicity. The young family's daughter will surely become a pillar of the country in the future. At the age of 22, I was the president of the student union. I represented the school and went to Vienna to attend the ICML academic conference. In the lecture hall with tens of thousands of people, I spoke fluent English and was confident and generous. When I walked on the campus path, someone would point at me and say, look, that's Senior Sherry. She's super amazing. At the age of 35, how did I end up like this? Tracy raised her head, her young and beautiful face looked at me, and her voice was gentle. Sister Sherry, don't blame Mr. Anthony. It was the company's annual meeting that day. Mr. Anthony and I were both drunk. I originally planned to have an abortion, but the old lady accidentally found out and took me for a checkup. It turned out to be a boy, so I decided to keep it. She stroked her belly and showed a smile. You know, the old lady has always wanted Mr. Anthony to have another son. You haven't been able to give birth to a son all these years. It's Mr. Anthony who has been bearing the pressure from the old lady for you. A huge and extremely absurd feeling hit me. I covered my throat, as if the pain of sea water filling my mouth and nose still remained on me. Under the extreme absurdity, I laughed out of anger. Why didn't I give birth to a son? That old woman knows better than anyone else. I've said that my Crystal is my only daughter, and I will only have her as my daughter. Whatever. Anthony stood up. At 188 meters tall, he was a head taller than me, standing in front of me. His shadow completely enveloped me. Anthony's face was as gloomy as the continuous rain outside the window. When you were 20, this was called being a bit playful and charming. But at the age of 30, it's no longer cute, it's stupid, he said word by word. Sherry, think it through yourself. After that, I applied to 7 or 8 more companies. Without exception, Anthony ruined all of them. The direction of my major is in line with technology companies, and Anthony's family has great influence in the technology field. He even spread the word that if any company dares to hire me, they won't be invited to the next year's technology summit. Once this statement was made, the companies avoided me even more. Even as soon as the name Sherry was mentioned, the HR would hang up on me without hesitation. Anthony called and said in a condescending tone, "Is your money almost running out? Come back and apologize to me." I clenched my palm tightly, and my nails left several deep crescent marks on my palm. I replied with 3 words, "Impossible." After getting married, Anthony gave me a credit card with no limit on overdrafts. I could use this card to buy jewelry, accessories, and luxury brand handbags, but I couldn't take away any cash. This marriage, this family, it was like a cage made of pure gold, gorgeous, hard, and envied by everyone, but it also made me feel breathless. The next day, I stood in front of a cleaning company. The hourly wage is $30, working 10 hours a day, and the salary is paid daily. The cleaning location is not fixed, depending on the customer's arrangement. The aunt with small curls placed the work uniform in front of me and looked me up and down critically. "Can you intellectuals do physical work?" I took the work uniform and smiled. "Don't look down on me, I'm very good at it. My parents passed away when I was 13 years old. In order to survive and have money to continue my studies, I worked as a waitress in a restaurant in the town, washed cars in an auto repair shop, and sold clothes in a clothing store. After being with Anthony, many people told me, "Sherry, you and Anthony are not from the same circle." I knew that. He had gone on a hunting trip in Africa and seen the aurora in Antarctica. Wherever he wanted to go, in order to welcome his arrival, the place would hang up a sign saying closed to the public. As for me, before the age of 18, I had never left my small hometown county. This marriage of more than 10 years made me mistakenly think that I could walk side by side with him. Just like in every novel, we would finally have a happy ending. But the story ended, and life went on. It was about daily necessities, trivial matters. It was about the casual condescension and the loss of the right to speak brought about by the different social classes. It was like a thin layer of sand between me and Anthony, at first. It was just a slight friction against the skin, making people feel a little uncomfortable. As time passed, this thin layer of sand became the most tormenting thing. It rubbed against the flesh inch by inch, invisible, countless, and impossible to wipe away. I changed into the work uniform of the cleaning company and looked at the woman in the mirror who had no makeup and no jewelry. She used to wear the most exquisite makeup, a high-end Dior dress of the current season, hold a champagne glass. With a fragrant dress and a smiling face, whether I was Anthony's wife or a cleaner, people have to survive first before they can talk about dignity. In the second week of my employment, I was assigned to an art exhibition hall. There was an exhibition that day, and the art gallery specifically asked our company to provide cleaning services. Working with me was a young boy. He had a dark complexion, was very thin, and looked malnourished, but his eyes were extremely black and bright, like the stars in the sky. I asked, "How old are you?" 16. I smiled. "Impossible. My daughter is 12 years old. Judging by your appearance, you're at most 13 years old." The little boy raised his eyes in a panic. "Please don't report me." I gently shook my head. "I won't. Whose 13-year-old days aren't difficult." The little boy let out a sigh of relief and gave me a shy smile. For the next 2 hours, he stayed with me all the time. A young boy had endless energy. "This iron bucket is too heavy. Let me carry it for you. I'll hold the chair for you. Don't fall when you stand on it." I handed him a tissue, wiped the sweat. "What's your name?" "Nathan." Nathan gave me a shy smile, raised his little face, and said carefully, "Auntie, can't you see with your left eye?" I was taken aback. "How did you find out?" For so many years, even my husband and daughter hadn't noticed. The little boy gestured at the distance between the paintings. "When you look at things, The distance is not accurate. Auntie, did you lose the sight in your left eye because of an illness? I shook my head. No, it was a gunshot wound. To save my ex-husband and daughter. The child opened his eyes wide. Then your ex-husband and daughter must have been very touched. Right, 3 days before the wedding, I tried to raise the corners of my mouth, but found that I couldn't lift them up no matter what, and my face only maintained a funny expression. They don't remember this matter. I touched the artificial eye on my left side, and a wave of bitterness welled up in my heart. They were clearly the two people who should be closest to me, the scars on my heart and the scars on my body, but they knew nothing about them. Auntie, don't cry. Nathan stood in front of me at a loss, and his small black hand wiped away my tears. Was I crying? Nathan puffed out his cheeks. They were too careless. It's their fault. From now on, I'll help Auntie carry things. I'll help Auntie measure distances, and I'll be Auntie's eyes. If anyone dares to bully Auntie, I'll fight back for you. The sincere and innocent words made my heart feel warm and comfortable. The corners of my mouth finally turned up. Okay, it's a deal. From now on, you will be my eyes. Let's pinky promise, and don't go back on your word. The little boy showed a shy smile on his dark face, hooked his little finger with mine, and shook it. Okay, pinky promise, and we can't change it for 100 years. The exhibition hall hadn't opened to the public officially yet. Only a very small number of people who held special invitations could enter in advance today. Nathan and I held cloth towels and carefully wiped the dust off the picture frames. Not far away, a soft female voice came. Crystal, this is a work by the famous oil painter Mr. Tobias. If you like it, shall I buy it for you? Dear, when I heard the familiar name, I suddenly froze in place. I saw my daughter. Crystal. Crystal was wearing a princess dress. The layers of tulle skirt were like blooming flowers, and there was a hairpin set with an 8-carat diamond in her hair. She was arm in arm with Tracy, very intimate. Thank you, Aunt Tracy. We already have 3 works by Mr. Tobias at home. This time, I'd like to take a look at some realistic paintings more. Next to her, there were 3 or 4 children of the same age, who were Crystal's friends. Also the daughters and sons of wealthy families. It was as if they had known I would be here. Tracy raised her head, met my eyes, and showed a malicious smile. The next second, she raised her voice and pointed at the oil painting behind me, saying, Crystal, what do you think of that painting? My heart suddenly rose. Subconsciously, I wanted to cover my face with my hands. I never thought it was embarrassing to do physical work, but in front of Crystal and her friends, I wanted to retain a bit of dignity for myself. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Don't let my daughter see her mother in such an embarrassing state. The gods didn't hear my prayer. It was like a slow-motion scene in a movie. Crystal turned her head inch by inch and looked at me. Tracy covered her mouth and said with an exaggerated and affected expression, Crystal, that cleaner looks so much like your mother. Crystal's eyes calmly swept over my cleaning uniform and the rag in my hand. She didn't stop for even a second. Crystal turned her head away and said without hesitation, That's not my mother. I said, My mother is already dead. A thunderclap seemed to explode in my ears. I felt dizzy and almost couldn't stand steadily. My palm was scratched by the sharp iron sheet of the table frame, and a bloodstain immediately appeared. Tracy smiled. She pinched Crystal's soft face and said with a smile, Then what kind of new mother does little Crystal want? Crystal hugged Tracy, pressed her small face against Tracy's chest, and coquettishly said, Of course, I want a mother like Aunt Tracy. She's smart, beautiful, and will play with me. It was as if a hand had lifted my heart and kneaded it repeatedly. It was also like throwing my heart into a frying pan. The excruciating pain in my heart made me not even feel the pain in my palm. The daughter I carried in my womb for 10 months, endured the pain of my bones spreading during childbirth, and howled in pain in the delivery room for a whole day and night to give birth. The daughter I held in my arms, endured the pain of cracked nipples, and fed with my blood and milk to raise. The daughter I stayed up all night for, held in my arms, and gently hummed a lullaby to coax to sleep. She cursed me to die, hugged another woman, and called her mother intimately. A small dark figure rushed in front of Crystal like a small whirlwind. Nathan knocked Crystal down and shouted loudly, Your mother is clearly here. Can't you see? The scene was in chaos. The blood from my palm flowed all over the floor. Nathan and Crystal fell to the ground. Tracy covered her stomach and slowly fainted. The sirens of the ambulance, the screams of the crowd, and the flustered footsteps mixed together. When I came to my senses again, I was already in the hospital. Everyone was bustling around Tracy. No one dealt with the wound on my hand. It had already coagulated on its own, and my palm and the back of my hand were covered in blood. In the corridor of the hospital, Anthony rushed over in a suit, furious, and immediately launched a scolding. "Sherry, what the hell are you doing? Do you want others to know that Crystal has a mother who works as a cleaner? How will she be able to hold her head up in front of her friends in the future? Also, that child suddenly rushed over and scared Tracy. Tracy is pregnant and her body is already weak. She just fainted from being frightened. Later, when she wakes up, you go and apologize to her, and this matter will be over." Me, go and apologize to Tracy. It was so absurd that I couldn't help laughing out loud. Anthony frowned. "What are you laughing at?" I raised my palm and put it in front of Anthony. "When you feel sorry for your mistress, please open your eyes and take a good look. She's not the only one who's injured." Anthony was silent for a moment. "I'll call a doctor for you." "No need," I said sarcastically. "Mr. Anthony is extremely busy. By the time you remember, I'm afraid I'll have already lost too much blood." Anthony rubbed his forehead in frustration. "At least, go and see Crystal." I fell silent. I did want to see Crystal. I wanted to get my safety buckle back. The safety buckle my mother gave me. When I was 13 years old, my mother fell seriously ill. She lay on her side on the bed, her eye sockets sunken, and her thin and withered hand covered mine. "Sherry, my body won't hold on for much longer." My mother's thin and sallow hand reached behind her neck and took off a safety buckle tied with a red string. It was emerald green, with a delicate texture. It felt warm to the touch and exuded a gentle and tranquil luster. My mother trembled slightly and tied the red string around my neck. "This safety buckle was given to me by your grandmother, praying for a lifetime of safety. I'm giving it to you, hoping that my Sherry, instead of seeking great wealth and honor, can just have a peaceful life." There was a sad look in her eyes. That was the sadness a mother showed when she was on the verge of death and about to part with her daughter. "I'm not capable, making my Sherry suffer. Sherry, you'll have to walk the rest of the road on your own from now on." I held her hand tightly, called her name in a hurry, and before I knew it, tears had streamed down my face. My mother went from weighing 130 pounds originally to 80 pounds, and in the end, there was only a small urn left. I held my mother's ashes urn and pressed my face against it, just like when I buried myself in my mother's arms when I was a child. "Mom, Mom, Mom." From then on, when I called out these two words, there would never be anyone to respond to me again. This safety buckle became my most precious thing, and I had been wearing it close to my body for 10 years, until Crystal was born, when I was forced to jump off the cliff by Anthony's mother. I was already 4 months pregnant. The impact of the jump, the frightened emotion, and the bone-chilling cold sea water, under the combined effect of these factors, as soon as I was rescued, I managed to keep the baby in the hospital for 3 months, and then Crystal was born prematurely. Looking at the small, fragile, and blue-purple baby in the intensive care unit, I held the safety buckle my mother left me tightly, knelt outside, and prayed over and over again, "If there are gods listening, please, please, bless my daughter to be safe. I'm willing to trade my lifespan, my happiness, everything I have for my daughter to survive." The white walls of the hospital have heard more mothers' prayers and tears than temples. 3 months later, Crystal finally got out of danger. I looked at her sleeping face with tears streaming down my face and tied the safety buckle around her neck. Just like my life, from then on, a small part of it was tied to myself. And a large part of it was tied to my daughter, Anthony, and I walked into the ward. Tracy was lying on the hospital bed, with a ruddy complexion and no sign of having fainted at all. There was a large pile of snacks in front of Crystal. When she saw me come in, she gave me a provocative look and, right in front of me, took big bites of the potato chips. Because of her premature birth, Crystal had an allergic constitution. In the past, I always watched over her and didn't let her eat these. Until once, in Anthony's office, I saw Tracy secretly stuffing a large bag of snacks to her. "Here, Crystal, eat it," Crystal said sweetly. "Thank you, Aunt Tracy. You're much better than my mother. I like you the most. Mom has no job and can only stare at me all day long." Finding a sense of accomplishment in disciplining me, Aunt Tracy is a strong career woman and won't be like my mother, who can only rely on my dad to earn money." Anthony half leaned against the desk and looked at the two of them indulgently. The three of them looked more like a family of three. In the ward, Crystal crunched on the potato chips in front of me, and in the blink of an eye, she finished a whole bucket. My gaze swept over her face, and I said calmly, "Give me back the safety buckle." Crystal looked confused. "What? The safety buckle I put on you when you were born? Give it back to me." Tracy, who was sitting next to her, suddenly laughed. "You mean this?" She took off a red string from her neck, on which there was a touch of gentle green. "It was the safety buckle I gave to Crystal." Tracy smiled and said, "When I fainted just now, Crystal was worried that I would get hurt, so she gave me this safety buckle. Crystal said that this is for ensuring safety and that it should bless me and the little brother in my belly to be safe. The safety buckle my mother gave me was given by Crystal to my husband's mistress." There was a loud buzz in my head. The hustle and bustle around me had nothing to do with me at this moment. The blood on my face faded rapidly, and my lips trembled. "Give it back to me." I pounced on Tracy like I was crazy. "Give it back to me," Tracy screamed. "What a lousy thing. Do you still treat it like a treasure? A legitimate wife only gives her only daughter such lousy jade material with this kind of texture. I don't even want to cherish it." She tore off the red string and threw the safety buckle at me. With a snap, the safety buckle fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. I seemed to see my mother's thin hand holding this safety buckle, and a gentle smile appeared on her pale face. "This safety buckle will bless our Sherry to be safe for a lifetime in the future." "Mom, I'm sorry. The only thing you left me as a keepsake was broken by me." My eyes suddenly went dark, and I was like a puppet without support, falling straight backward. "Mom, Sherry," in a daze, I felt myself being hugged by Anthony. He picked me up horizontally and placed me on a stretcher, and I was pushed into the emergency room. The doctor pried open my eyes, and a strong light shone on my left eye that had no vision. "This lady is blind in her left eye." This fainting was caused by nerve compression under extreme emotional excitement, in the last moment before completely losing consciousness. I heard Anthony's extremely anxious voice. "Why is her left eye blind?" My eyes went dark, and I completely fainted. I clearly realized that I was dreaming, because I actually saw Sherry at the age of 22. The waves crashed against the rocks. The sky was pitch black, with only a few stars twinkling. Sherry at the age of 22 stood on the edge of the cliff, wearing a thin dress. The sea breeze blew up the hem of her skirt, like a seagull spreading its wings. She raised her head and smiled gently at me. "You're here." I walked up to her side, looked at her young and bright face, and before I knew it, tears streamed down my face. "I'm sorry. I let you down. I'm sorry." Sherry at the age of 35 let you down. She didn't become a pillar of the country, nor did she become an extremely amazing senior. She didn't pursue advanced studies in her major, didn't have a job, and became a woman abandoned by her husband and daughter. She couldn't even keep her mother's keepsake. "I'm sorry." She became a weak, tired, and unsuccessful adult. Is my life also like that safety buckle? With a snap, it shattered and could never be mended again. "No." Sherry at the age of 22 smiled at me, more dazzling than the spring light in April. "You've done a great job." She seemed to be talking to me and also to herself. "You've walked such a long way on your own. You're amazing and great. Thank you. You've worked hard," she said slowly, seriously, and clearly word by word. "Do you remember who saved you that night after you jumped off the cliff? It was you yourself. You were so weak at that time, in the icy sea water. You clung to a wooden board. You drifted with the waves all night long, and finally, the next day, you were saved by the passing fisherman. Sherry, no matter how old you are, you're still the same you. You can always rely on yourself and do things that others can't." Sherry at the age of 22 walked up to me and hugged me. Her long hair fell on my shoulders, and she stroked my back gently. She said, "There's no one to pull you out of the abyss. You are that person. So, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of having nothing. The past you will accompany you, the pain you've experienced, the sweat and tears you've shed, the knowledge you've learned, and the roads you've walked will accompany you. You will always have yourself. All the grievances, bitterness, pain, and hardships of these years burst out at once." The tears fell into my mouth, tasting salty. I buried my face in her neck and sobbed uncontrollably. In the silent night sky, The stars blinked their eyes, watching the young girl and the woman embracing each other. Don't be afraid of the wind, frost, snow, and rain. Don't be afraid of the confused road ahead, because I will, again and again, thousands of times, without hesitation, save myself from the hardships of this world. It was like having a very long dream. It was also like finally waking up from a dream. When I woke up, the pillow had already been soaked by my tears. The unique smell of disinfectant in the hospital filled my nostrils. I moved a little, and Anthony, who had been pretending to be asleep, woke up with a start at once. Sherry, you're awake. How do you feel? Is there anywhere you feel uncomfortable? Crystal stood beside my hospital bed, twisting the lace of her skirt with her small hand, and called softly, "Mom." I lay back on the pillow again. I was fine originally, but seeing the two of them after waking up, I wasn't fine anymore. Anthony's eyes fell on my left eye, and he hesitated to speak. "Sherry, what's going on with your left eye? The doctor said that your left eye was replaced with a prosthesis 9 years ago. 9 years ago was the year I found you. What happened at that time?" He looked at me in a panic, as if he wanted an answer, yet also afraid of getting an answer. "Sherry, did I forget something important?" I lay on the hospital bed, looking up at the liquid in the drip bottle, which flowed into my body bit by bit through the infusion tube. It was like the memories of 9 years ago flowing back into my body little by little. After I faked my death by jumping off the cliff, Anthony didn't give up looking for me. He didn't believe that I was dead. Nor did he listen to the arranged marriage in his family. In order to find me, he almost turned the whole capital city upside down, in order to take care of the newly born Crystal and also to avoid Anthony. For 3 years, I rarely left the house and only found some part-time jobs online, but I didn't give up studying. When Crystal was 3 years old, I finally received an offer from MIT. My supervisor appreciated the research direction of my college thesis. The scholarship provided could cover the tuition fees and living expenses, and there was even a slight surplus, which could support Crystal. My heart started beating again. A week later, I boarded a plane to the United States. The plane traced a path in the blue sky, and the white clouds stretched around me. I looked at the houses below that were getting smaller and smaller through the airplane window. Goodbye, the capital city. Goodbye, Anthony. Suddenly, the flashing red light came on in the cabin. The plane circled and descended, and the passengers in the cabin were in a panic. What's going on? Why is it landing suddenly? The tall flight attendant walked up to me, squatted down halfway, and said softly, "Miss Young, this way, please." I sat still. The flight attendant's smile was still bright. "Mr. Anthony said that the plane can't take off again until you get off the plane." With a swish, the gazes of all the people on the plane shot over like searchlights. I clenched my palm and slowly stood up. In the first-class lounge, I saw Anthony again. This man whom I hadn't seen for 3 years. He had always been elegant, calm, and at ease. I had never seen Anthony in such a mess. There were dark circles under his eyes, and there was stubble on his chin, as if he hadn't slept for 3 days. He knelt down on one knee in front of me, hugged me tightly, and buried his face in my neck. I felt the cold wetness on my neck. He choked up and said, "Sherry, you're not dead." "That's great, you're not dead. I've never given up looking for you in these 3 years. As long as the search and rescue team under that cliff didn't find your remains, I wouldn't give up. Do you know how I felt when I found out your passport information? I finally found you. You also have a daughter with you, right?" He saw Crystal. Anthony's eyes suddenly turned red. He carefully picked up Crystal, as gentle as if he were holding a fragile doll. "She looks like me, really like me." Anthony's act of intercepting the plane was too high profile, and he was directly located by his enemies. The moment he held Crystal in his arms, with a snap, the glass was shattered by the bullet. "Be careful." I suddenly pushed Anthony and Crystal away and fell to the ground. The stray bullet grazed my left eye, and I groaned and covered my eye. Blood flowed out between my fingers. "Sherry." The gunpowder smoke filled the air, and the gunshots were deafening. The shooting was aimed at Anthony. Several fatal bullets whistled over and hit Anthony's chest. The bodyguards of his family arrived quickly, controlled the situation, and sent Anthony to the nearest hospital by helicopter. On the helicopter, Anthony's face was as pale as paper. The bullet wound was still bleeding continuously, staining half of his shirt red, but his gaze always stayed firmly on me. "Sherry, I love you." Each word seemed to have used up all his strength, and his voice was trembling and weak. Anthony held my hand tightly and tried to squeeze out a smile. "If I survive, give me a chance to make up for the mistakes of these 3 years with the rest of my life." "Okay." Anthony was pushed into the operating room. My left eye was also properly bandaged. However, the eye is a sensitive part after all. The optic nerve was hit, and I could only replace it with a prosthesis, and Anthony was much more seriously injured. There was a through injury in his right chest, broken ribs, and massive bleeding. I saw Anthony lying in the ICU. As he breathed, a layer of mist covered the oxygen mask. At that time, I was young and soft-hearted. This thrilling experience made me realize that I still loved Anthony. I thought silently in my heart, if Anthony could survive, I would agree to him. I wouldn't leave him anymore. A week later, Anthony woke up. But he forgot this memory. The doctor said that because Anthony was too seriously injured, his body couldn't bear such intense emotional fluctuations. In order to protect his brain, he forcibly forgot the memory of being shot. It didn't matter, I thought in my heart, as long as I remembered. I gave up the offer from MIT and got back together with Anthony. I walked into the golden cage that Anthony had built for me again. At that time, I didn't know. Just like a butterfly flapping its wings, this decision had a profound impact on my future. If I hadn't forgiven Anthony and hadn't given up further studies, would the ending now be completely different? I didn't know. I believed in people's hearts, but people's hearts change. The daughter who used to obediently snuggle in my arms and smile sweetly at me now prefers another woman to be her mother. Anthony, who had sworn to make up for me with the rest of his life, also cheated on a younger and more beautiful girl. And now, I'm going to get out of this golden cage. I'm going to live for myself. After listening to my narration, Anthony stood there in a daze. His breathing became rapid and heavy, and his chest rose and fell violently. "All these years, Sherry, why didn't you tell me?" I turned my head and said calmly, "Some things, you will know without being told. Some things, it's useless to tell them." After saying that, I closed my eyes wearily and stopped looking at him. The sunlight climbed up the window lattice grid by grid, but it couldn't reach me and Anthony. Anthony bent over. His body seemed to be crushed by an invisible heavy pressure, and he buried his face in his hands. After a long time, his shoulders twitched, and he let out a suppressed sob. From that day on, Anthony and Crystal seemed like two different people. Anthony moved his desk to my hospital room. During the day, he sat on that hard and uncomfortable chair and held meetings with his subordinates in various languages. At night, he would wake up every few hours, tuck in my quilt, and carefully check if I had a fever. He even made health porridge and then carefully brought it to my mouth, asking me how it tasted. It's said that there's no filial son in front of a long-term sickbed. I even suspected that Anthony wanted to be my son. After I was hospitalized, no one controlled Crystal's diet restrictions anymore. She ate junk food without any scruples and, as expected, had an allergic reaction. Her snow-white little face swelled up like a pig's head. Crystal couldn't control her hands, because it was too itchy. She kept scratching her cheeks. Even after recovering, there would be scars on her face. She came to me crying, "Mom, I was wrong. I should have listened to you and not eaten these things. I won't listen to Aunt Tracy either. I'll listen to you from now on." In the past, I would immediately hold her in my arms and comfort her tenderly. But now, I just looked at her pig-like face and found it funny. "It's so ugly. Cover it up quickly. Don't scare others. I'm myself first before being anyone's wife or mother." Time passed quickly. 3 weeks later, it was my birthday. Anthony prepared a cake for me. The light of the candles flickered in the hospital room filled with the smell of disinfectant. Anthony looked at me expectantly. "Sherry, make a wish." I put my hands together, made a wish silently in my heart, and then gently blew out the candles. Crystal looked at me eagerly. "Mom, is your wish related to me and Dad?" She knew that in the past, my birthday wishes were always for her to be safe all her life and for Anthony to have a smooth life. There was never anything about myself. "It's related." Crystal's eyes lit up with excitement. Anthony also held his breath, and his gaze fell on my face. My voice was calm. "My wish is that I hope Anthony and Crystal, the big one and the small one, can be packed together and get out of my world." The air around seemed to freeze. Crystal stared at me blankly and burst into loud sobs with a "wow." Anthony twitched the corner of his mouth, trying to show a smile, but it looked uglier than crying. Sherry, don't make such jokes on your birthday. I looked at him calmly. I'm not joking, Anthony. The fate between each person has a certain limit. You and I were never on the same path. That shooting forcibly tied the red thread between us for another 9 years. But this thread is too light and thin to withstand the wear and tear of these years. Anthony, the fate between you and me has come to an end. Save some dignity as an adult and part on good terms. Time suddenly became quiet. Anthony sat there in silence, like a silent statue, his hands clenched into fists, his knuckles turned white, and his veins bulged. He was silent for a long time and finally opened his mouth, but only uttered a few words. You won't forgive me anymore, will you? I nodded calmly, as if discussing the weather today. I won't forgive you anymore, and I don't love you anymore either. Anthony turned his face away, the lines on his face were tense, and in the depths of his eyes, it was like a silent lake. I vaguely saw a trace of tears flash in Anthony's eyes. Crystal finally realized that I didn't want her anymore. She grabbed my arm in a panic, her nails digging deeply into my skin, and cried loudly, I don't want to leave, I want Mom. She hurt me again. My hand covered her small hand. Then, one finger at a time, I pried her hand off my arm. Don't call me Mom anymore. I smiled faintly. I have a new child. If you call me like this, he will be jealous. Crystal was stunned. Who? Nathan walked up to me and leaned against me affectionately. The safety buckle around his neck had been repaired and was wrapped with gold inlaid jade. Nathan picked up the pieces of the safety buckle one by one from the ground and pieced them together bit by bit. He wore it around his neck preciously. The things that Crystal didn't cherish, someone cherished. The mother that Crystal didn't love, someone would love. Crystal's mouth opened wide, and she let out a heart-rending cry. She rushed over suddenly and beat Nathan fiercely, shouting non-stop. It's all because of you that Mom doesn't want me. It's all because of you. Her fists rained down on Nathan. I raised my arm and, without hesitation, protected Nathan behind me. I looked at her indifferently. Crystal, stop acting up. The way you're throwing a tantrum is really ugly. If you hit my son again, I'll call the police and have you arrested. On that day, Anthony carried Crystal, who had cried until she fainted, and left. Before leaving, Anthony looked at my face for a long, long time. After a long time, he finally opened his mouth, his voice extremely hoarse. I'm sorry, Sherry, I'm sorry for the hurt I caused you, and all of this had nothing to do with me anymore. A month later, I recovered from my injury. The first thing I did after being discharged from the hospital was to go through the adoption procedures for Nathan. The child followed me and changed his name to Claire. After the red ink pad was stamped, the child held the adoption certificate and giggled for a long time. I couldn't stand it anymore and flicked his head. If you keep laughing, your mouth will be crooked. Claire hugged me with a smile, buried his face in my arms, and kept calling me, Mom, Mom, Mom. I smiled and said, yes. From then on, I had one more person who loved me. I turned on the computer, deleted and revised for a month, and sent an email again to the MIT professor who had once given me an offer. I waited restlessly for half a month, and I no longer held out hope. The mailbox dinged. And a new email arrived, an email from MIT. The old professor said that he still remembered me and was willing to offer me another opportunity to study. I covered my face and let out a silent scream. My heart was pounding and beating rapidly in my chest. I did it. Sherry at the age of 35 pulled herself out of the abyss once again. The future is like a shining road, slowly unfolding in front of me. After 9 years, I took Claire and boarded a plane to the United States again. Before boarding the plane, I wrote a complete report letter with all the evil deeds Anthony's family had done over the years, along with the evidence, and sent it out. It can be regarded as putting an end to these years. In the unique humming sound of the aircraft cabin, I closed my eyes and fell asleep unconsciously. I had another dream. I dreamed of myself at the age of 18, holding the admission notice from Peking University and walking into the flashy and dazzling capital city. She had a ponytail, no makeup on her face, and was wearing old clothes that had been washed until they turned white. But she was so full of spirit. Looking at my younger self, I couldn't help but say with heartache, you will have a really tough time in the next few years. You will jump into the sea, get shot, give birth to a child, and get divorced. You will taste all the pain of relationships and life. You will have nothing and be completely exhausted. The girl opened her eyes wide, and her ponytail swayed. Ah, will it be very hard? Just as I was about to say something, the girl took a step forward and smiled. But you got through it and are doing well now, aren't you? If you can get through it, so can I. I want to experience the ups and downs of life on my own. Don't spoil it for me in advance. I at the age of 18 was like a tenacious weed. Even on the barren cliffs, I could push aside the stones, shake my leaves, and welcome the sunlight, rain, and dew. Perhaps I once took a wrong path and was once confused and in distress, but I will eventually reach out to myself and pull myself out of the darkness. Fortunately, I at the age of 35 am also like this. I lost myself and then found myself again. So, I also smiled with relief. We held hands and walked towards the long, shining road in the dream. I will become my own courage and armor. From then on, the sun is shining just right, and the road ahead is smooth. Extra chapter ***. Antony's family has had a tough time in recent years. The evil deeds of Antony's family were reported, and they were thoroughly investigated. Suffering a great loss, Antony's family's industries were inspected one by one. Their accounts were frozen, their assets were sealed up, and the stock price plummeted like a cliff until it hit the daily limit. The luxurious sports cars were impounded, the artworks were confiscated, and the wine cellar full of famous wines was also sealed with a seal. The once bustling banquet hall is now deserted. The once arrogant Sear family has fallen from the clouds to the bottom, and their status has plummeted. Tracy gave birth to a boy. From then on, Crystal found that her always loving grandmother seemed to have changed into a different person. Her pocket money was stopped, and even her right of inheritance was crossed out from the will. In order to protect the only male heir, the last bit of Antony's family's assets was given to her younger brother. The old lady of Antony's family had a wrinkled face and still wore red lipstick. Her slanting eyes made her look even more mean. Antony's family will belong to your younger brother in the future. You're just a girl. Do you still want to compete with your brother? Crystal wanted to go to her beloved Aunt Tracy to cry and complain, but she found that Tracy, who used to be gentle and kind to her, glanced at her contemptuously and sneered. Your mother is already gone. Don't expect me to spoil you like she did. You'd better be obedient, or you'll suffer. Crystal's face turned red. You shameless woman, if it weren't for you seducing my dad in the first place, why would my mom have left? Tracy's face instantly darkened. She raised her hand and slapped Crystal hard with a slap. She said viciously, "Do you think you're still that pampered young lady? I'm telling you, your parents don't want you, and your grandmother doesn't want you either. Now, I'm the mistress of this house." Crystal covered her swollen and red face and cried so hard that she was out of breath. She then realized that the smooth life she had had in the previous years was because Sherry had been shielding her from the wind and rain. It was she herself who had pushed her mother away with her own hands. Crystal finally realized belatedly, no one would love her like her mother did anymore. From then on, the quarrels between Crystal and Tracy intensified, and they even resorted to physical fights. During one of the quarrels, Tracy pushed Crystal hard. Crystal was caught off guard, lost her balance, stumbled a few steps backward, and finally fell into the icy river. The river water instantly submerged her head. 3 days later, when Crystal was found, her body had swollen from being soaked in the water. The old lady of Antony's family held her beloved grandson and said indifferently to Tracy, "An eye for an eye. Anyway, you're not married to Antony. Leave Antony's family's grandson behind. As for the rest, let the law decide the sentence." Tracy laughed like a madwoman, and the muscles on her face were twisted and deformed. Antony's family's grandson. What dream are you having? This is not your grandson at all. That night, I didn't sleep with Antony at all. This child was born to me and another man. You old woman who values sons over daughters and is blind. Now your own granddaughter is dead, and you treat this fake grandson like the apple of your eye. How do you feel about it? The old lady of Antony's family was so angry that her thin fingers pointed at Tracy and stammered you for a long time. She couldn't catch her breath and fainted all of a sudden. She was already old. And after several stimuli, her whole body collapsed instantly, and she became hemiplegic. Half of her body lost its sensation, and she could only lie on the bed feebly, unable to take care of her own toileting. A few months passed, and her body became even weaker. One silent night, the old lady of Antony's family suddenly felt a churning in her stomach. Before she could call for help, the vomit gushed out of her mouth like a flood breaking through a dam, blocking her mouth and nose, making her unable to breathe, and she died of suffocation. The white cloth used to pay tribute to Crystal had just been removed and was then arranged on the old lady of Antony's family's mourning hall. Losing two of his closest blood relatives one after another, Antony aged a lot all of a sudden. Fine lines climbed up the corners of his eyes, and white strands were mixed in his hair. He looked old and tired. Antony stood in front of the old lady of Antony's family's mourning hall and thought silently, how ironic, Crystal liked Tracy, but in the end, she was killed by Tracy. His mother wanted a grandson, but it turned out that the grandson was not of Antony's family's blood. Tracy schemed and calculated everything, but in the end, she was sentenced to death for intentional homicide, and he himself, on one hand, liked Sherry, but on the other hand, he couldn't bear to part with the wealth and glory of Antony's family. So, Antony's family collapsed, and everything vanished like clouds and smoke until there was nothing left. Antony suddenly covered his face and laughed. As he laughed, tears welled up between his fingers. All of this was the retribution they deserved for trampling on Sherry's sincere heart in the first place. Extra chapter 2 ***. In contrast to the decline of Antony's family, Sherry has had a great time in recent years. She spent 4 years obtaining a Ph.D. degree from MIT. Sherry didn't forget her wish at the age of 18, to become a pillar of the country. She returned to China after completing her studies, founded the technology company Zhouxing, obtained hundreds of millions of dollars in financing, and became a new upstart in the technology industry. At an academic conference, Sherry met a big shot in the academic world, who fell in love with her at first sight. He was young, handsome, and loved her very much. The big shot pursued her for a long time, and only then did Sherry relent and enter into her second marriage with a beaming smile. They didn't have any more children and gave all their love to Claire. The last time Antony saw Sherry was at an academic conference, as a special guest. She made the final appearance and shared her latest algorithm model at the conference. In the academic conference hall, the lights were bright and focused on the lady on the podium. She was dressed in a simple and decent formal suit, with a tall and straight posture, a beautiful voice, and elegant enunciation. The moment she finished her speech, thunderous applause rang out. The applause lasted for a long time, as if it was going to break through the roof and reach the sky. Sherry slightly bowed her body and gracefully bowed to the audience to express her gratitude. At this moment, she was the focus of the entire venue, and everyone's eyes couldn't move away from her. Antony was also one of them. She spoke as a student representative and stood firmly in front of the microphone. She was radiant, full of spirit, confident, and generous, and the feeling of his heart being moved was just like in the past. Antony wanted to take a step forward, walk up to Sherry, and ask her, "How are you?" Two people were one step faster than him. The academic big shot's eyes were full of admiration and love. He opened his broad chest, hugged Sherry tightly in his arms, and gently kissed her on the cheek. "Honey, you're amazing, I'm so proud of you." Claire also threw himself into his mother's arms, his eyes shining brightly. "Mom, you're so amazing. You were shining up there." Sherry showed a soft smile and hugged her husband and son back. The sunlight shone gently through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden outline